It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. A very happy Friday, January 3rd to you. We're off and running. We're going to give you the latest updates on New Orleans and Las Vegas attacks today, as well as the fired Jeffco Public School Administrator that was found dead. Will Mike Johnson remain Speaker of the House? Allstate had a disastrous Sugar Bowl ad. We'll be talking about that. And joining us a little bit later in the show will be George Brauchler. Talking a little Attorney General Phil Weiser deciding to run for Colorado governor. He did an interview on Channel 9. Not great yesterday. We'll get into the details on that. Kyle pressed him a little bit, not as hard as he should have, on being the chief law enforcement officer in Colorado that has a lot of violent crime problems. And why do we continue to have those problems? And true to form, the professor, Phil Weiser, Bill felt that we just need to pilot some more programs.
Oh, yeah. It's all about programs. That's the reason that things have gotten so bad. If there was only more programs, the crime would go down. If we only had more programs. That's the problem. I'm certain that when George Brauchler joins us, that he's going to say that when he deals with a lot of the criminals in his workaday job, that they say, you know, Mr. Brauchler, I understand I did this crime, but if only there was a program I could have done instead. I'm certain that's the reason that they pull people over that are stealing cars. And like, if there was only a program, we could have, that would have been.
I wouldn't have done this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's great.
Great.
Yeah, it shows why the professor. That's his approach. It's not. Yes. It's not. It's not the rank and file law enforcement. We need to think harder
about these problems.
Yes, and then force them to sit in the corner and think about it and think about what they've done. Yes, maybe we can have a state-sponsored dunce cap that we give the criminals or something. Some kind of program for that. I got your program right here. I'm a little surly with him. I don't like him. I'm sorry, and it's not a personal thing.
Surly Bill is the most fun.
Yeah, yeah, Surly Bill is fun. It's it has more to do with job performance. And I get that. And we critique here daily on job performance. And I get that. And so I'm sensitive to that. But that's where I'm critiquing him on this, is I am very, very disappointed in his job performance and don't think that there's a heck of a lot that says I need to get to the governor's office, because based on what I've seen in the AG's office, no, you don't. Unless he will take the Jeff Hunt approach and lock the door and say, call me if there's an emergency. If he promises to do that, vote for him. That'd be about it, because then he's not in the office. And I'm okay with that.
So he had a rough day yesterday because when you announce that you're running for governor, it's a big day, right? You get your family together, you plan it all out. You get your communications team and you go with your posts and what you're going to highlight and all that. And then comes along Jeff Hunt. And
nicely done.
This is what happened to Phil Weiser. He writes, today I'm announcing my candidacy for governor for Colorado. There are many reasons why I'm running, yada, yada, yada. And as of this morning, still, his tweet announcing that he's running for governor, 620 likes.
620. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then Jeff Hunt comes along and says, this loser who drove Colorado into a crime ditch wants to become governor. 1,600 likes.
That's not good. That's not good.
Not a good sign, Phil.
No, not at all. Not a good sign about how well we're doing already in traction as far as getting elected. But that's okay.
The dude with the little radio show comes along and pokes at you and gets more likes than your actual announcement for governor.
Yeah, and you're the attorney general of a state. That's great. That's good. That's fantastic. Good job. It shows the enthusiasm of his supporters already. He's hitting the ground running. He's going to be ready day one. It's all that other crap they say.
With another program. Yes. I guarantee you, he called his comms director and said, we need to come up with a program to deal with Jeff Hunt.
Yes, we need a program.
In his tweets.
And
I was joking with my family. I was like, gosh darn, I'm going to get audited.
Yeah, you are.
All for that tweet.
The other part is, though, that when he did it, he involved a whiteboard. That's what he just has to do. Yeah, you're on some whiteboard somewhere. Get Jeff Hunt. It's circled. Yeah.
We're also going to talk with Jon Carson. So he's one of the big three that are seeking to fill Senate District 30's vacancy. This is Kevin Van Winkle's seat in Douglas County. Kevin Van Winkle, now a county commissioner, so he's got a few years remaining on his term. So Republicans are going to get together tomorrow. We've already talked with Kim Ransom. We've talked with Priscilla Ron, and now we're going to talk with John Carson a little bit later in the show as well. And then, of course, it's Friday, so we're going to finish with some cowboy poetry, Jeff Hildebrandt. So you're not going to want to miss it. Absolutely fire show coming up here in just a second. Rory O'Neill from NBC National News Correspondent is going to give us an update on what's happening in New Orleans and Las Vegas. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Friday, 22 and cloudy in Denver. Expecting a high of 54 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Las Vegas Metro Police Department says the driver of the rented Tesla Cybertruck that exploded in front of the Trump International Hotel on Wednesday morning suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Investigators believe the man, identified as 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, shot himself seconds before the explosion, which also led to injuries, of course. Police say Livelsberger was active duty military operations sergeant who served in the U.S. Army as a Green Beret. He was most recently living in Colorado and had a newborn baby. The truck was rented in Denver on December 28th via the Turo app.
There's just so much there that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, I seriously want to talk about this today because I'm like, how does a trained Green Beret, active duty, special forces guy that's like, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm also going to send a message, I want to damage Donald Trump and Elon Musk, then fills the back of his car with fireworks and camping gas? Like that
psychological
that doesn't make any sense.
Issues.
Like,
no, of course
you don't
not.
think he could build something that would take out the entire first floor of that building and then pack a Cybertruck, which is known to be bulletproof?
Yeah, I don't know. This one, that whole situation to me is, you know, how we see crimes of passion.
Yeah.
You know, all the personal stuff going on in this guy's life, just like the other guy. You know, they literally drive off the edge of the cliff, figuratively and literally. And yeah, this guy was nuts. I mean,
you think so?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean,
there's a lot there that I got questions about. Like, the guy shoots himself, then blows it up.
Yeah, but you know, he had an ex-wife, he had a girlfriend, he had a newborn, he has all this stuff going on. I mean, he just, I mean, for whatever the term is, he just lost it.
Wow.
From what it looks like to me here. And then the other guy was radicalized. I know you do. I mean, it could be anything, but I mean, this guy was evidently screaming out for help,
right,
or crying out for help. And the other guy was radicalized, obviously, and probably.
And then they all happen within hours of each other.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't. It doesn't seem like it isn't something that should be connected, but
right.
I don't know. It's just sad times. It's horrible,
It is.
horrible story, and it just keeps on going. The chief of police in DC says the department will operate at a heightened level of security through at least the end of the week. The decision comes after the terrorists mowed down victims in New Orleans with a truck 2 days ago, killing more than a dozen people. So they played the Sugar Bowl last night, and then the All-State CEO before the game, Tom Wilson, with this woke statement before the game last night.
Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and
what? Overcoming an addiction to
Yeah, and
divisiveness. That's stupid. I don't have the addiction. Do you have an addiction?
What was it? Divisiveness that drove the truck down Bourbon Street? Divisiveness that packed a Cybertruck with explosives?
Right.
No, it was lunacy
Yeah.
that did that, rooted in one case, in a false
Evil.
religion. And yeah.
Evil. Here's the rest of it. Negativity.
Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences.
What? Okay. This is football, college football. There's all the differences in the world, the imperfections. That's what that's American patriotism coming together to root for your team. Doesn't matter fat, skinny, brown, black, white, in between. We don't care about all this crap. This is the crap that needs to be destroyed. What were you saying, Jeff?
Well, that right there, Blake, is why Donald Trump is our new president.
Yes.
People got tired of that crap.
That's right.
You know, some corporate PR head felt like we're going to utilize this moment to drive this agenda. And it comes across as so tone deaf and it misses the point entirely. Like it's like, don't believe what your eyes tell you that a radical jihadist got in a truck and mowed down people on Bourbon Street. It's divisiveness that's the problem. And people are just like, I'm tired of this crap.
And by the way, I always forget this. Dude, what do you think about this? And I'm curious. Was it a tragedy? It wasn't a tragedy, was it? It was a horrific crime. It's a tragedy that this
if it's an accident,
jackwagon did this.
Yeah.
But a tragedy, well, I guess it would be a tragedy. You know, what is the word?
I guess if you define tragedy under like more of an accident, like
right. It wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
It was intentional. I'm trying to, intentional.
It's a direct attack on the citizens of America.
Yeah. I mean, they're talking like it's a hurricane coming in there. And and it's just there's one guy who is at fault here.
Together, we win.
I'm so sick of this crap. And this is why I hated the NFL for the past 6-7 years or whatever, or 5 years, however long. But they still are putting this not in the end zone, but in the back of the end zone, the stop hate thing. They put that on the field, and it takes all of us. It takes all of us to what? It takes all of us to what? To win a football game? What are you trying to get out of here? And then stop hate. Well, I hate communism. I hate the Islamo-Nazis. I mean, stop hate. What else do they have? And racism. Yeah,
right.
Well, the United States is the greatest place if you want to get away from racism, even though we've been conditioned not to believe that. So anyway, that was what Tom Wilson said. And I heard what Hugh said, and Hugh was right. But he said, I don't blame Tom Wilson. He didn't write this. Well, dude, you're the CEO. You're the CEO, man. Don't read it then. If you're a leader, don't read that crap.
Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be.
We also need to. This was so bad. But if you're the CEO, don't read it.
Yes.
Right.
That's the classic corporate CEO.
God,
I've run into this with boards over and over again. They hire these like vanilla, plain people that don't have a spine. There's no backbone anywhere in these guys.
Yeah,
and they just kind of plug along.
Yeah, and that's why they have a lot more money than I do.
Because you have
a plug along. You look in their eyes, and you can see through the back of their head. It's like those. They're just like politicians, no doubt.
Yes.
Yep. And the younger brother of the terrorist behind the attack in New Orleans says he and his family are shocked and devastated by the horrific crimes committed. Abdur Rahim Jabbar says their hearts and prayers go out to the victims and their loved ones.
We're all grieving about this. This wasn't the man I knew. This wasn't the father, the son that I knew. And that also, this isn't any representation of Al-Islam or Muslims or the Muslim community, our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to those families, the victims of those families, and those who were there to witness it.
All right, let's go to Rory O'Neill right now. Okay.
Sorry, not you, Blake.
I thought I was getting. I thought Rory was ready to go here.
Yeah, the talk back in the ear goes to you as well, and I just
that
want to
would have been fun.
Yeah, I just want to toss to tell Jeff that we got to go right to Rory, and I'm moving the weather.
I'm gonna wrap it up right here. News brought to you by Laureate Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace and patio and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at LaureateFireplaceandPatio.com. 24 in Castle Pines, 25 in Boulder, 28 in Denver. Jeff and Billy return, and they're going to Rory O'Neill. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Thanks so much, Blake. Let's go to Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent, with all the breaking and latest news on the investigations into the deadly New Year's events in both New Orleans and Las Vegas. Rory, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Sure. Good morning.
So what did we learn overnight?
Well, what's interesting is that since we talked yesterday, I think we were talking about how they were searching desperately, really, for any accomplices who might still be in New Orleans ahead of the Sugar Bowl being played last night. But then we later learned yesterday that they're confident that this was a lone wolf actor. They haven't ruled out accomplices, but right now they're thinking this man was acting on his own. They found surveillance video that shows him placing these improvised explosives that were in coolers in 2 different locations about an hour or two before he then got in that truck and went down on that rampage down Bourbon Street. So they feel better now that this was one man acting on his own.
Now, we know that the attack in New Orleans was inspired by ISIS. It wasn't activated by ISIS. It was a guy that kind of read their teachings online and then decided to go do this himself. Concerns we may see other actions from ISIS-inspired terrorists in America?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. But I think now the greater concern is these more lone wolves acting by just driving a car crazy. Yes, there were IEDs. Thankfully, they didn't go off. But we've seen this more and more now, either in Nice, France, or in Germany just before Christmas, where the only thing you need is a set of car keys in order to become a terrorist. You don't even need to set a bomb or make a car bomb, that you just drive into a crowd. And that's something that is very hard to guard against. And it's a big challenge for law enforcement at every level.
Talking with Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent. So, Rory, in Las Vegas, we learned that this guy shot himself and then the bombs went off. Help us understand that.
Right. Well, it set a fuse, apparently, and then the bombs went off later. He was a decorated Green Beret. I think he won the Bronze Star 5 times. So it's interesting. I think that we're going to see that we're ultimately, I bet, and this is my complete guess on my part, but we're not going to be classifying this as an attack much longer. That this was a guy who committed suicide in a grand fashion and perhaps didn't really have any motivation beyond that. And wasn't really intent on causing damage. Look, this is a trained Green Beret, right? He knows how to blow stuff. And if he really wanted to do damage to that hotel building, he could have done more if he drove through the front door. It didn't even break the glass window. So he must have known that the fireworks and the camping fuel that he had in the back of that pickup truck weren't going to do any serious damage to a multi-story hotel building in Vegas, right? So what was the motivation there? Was he just trying to, he just got dumped by his wife, a girlfriend he was trying to rekindle things with apparently was saying no. So was he just trying to make them jealous or sorry or hurt them emotionally with this and have this spectacular kind of suicide? Was that it? Because it doesn't seem, nothing adds up with him trying to attack this hotel. He was a Trump supporter, for the record. So, that motivation still isn't quite there yet.
Right. And then to get in a car and drive all the way to Las Vegas, our show is in Colorado. Vegas is it's not an easy drive to get there. You really have to commit to get all the way over there. You got to drive through the mountains and then the deserts.
And he had to stop and recharge a few times with that Cybertruck.
Wow. That is wild. Well, Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent, will continue to be tracking all this. We sure appreciate your great reporting and spending time this morning with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Hey, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Again, Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent. So there's so much to talk about, Bill.
Yes.
Let's just piggyback off of what Rory just talked about here.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, and I posted this yesterday, that it does seem like, and it didn't go very far. I got 10 likes or something like that. But maybe what connects all these is just personal problems.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen that in quite a number of cases. The vast majority of mass shooters are motivated through personal problems. The reason kids are bringing guns into schools, personal problems. The reason the guy set up in Vegas in the hotel rooms and shot down at the concert with all those guns, personal problems. And we've discussed this a number of times on the air here on the Jeff and Bill Show, that I'm kind of the opinion that when people are doing this, they are trying to externalize their pain.
Yes.
The pain they are feeling, they want everybody else to pay attention to, and some of you to feel it. They feel ignored. They feel lost inside our society. They feel there is no answer. And if the only way they can help you understand the pain and the despondent nature of what they're feeling inside is to externalize it. So all of you out there that are walking around having your regular lives, you're now going to feel and experience what I feel and experience. And I think we see that a lot.
That happens not nearly at this level, but when you're in an argument with people, right? And you say something that hurts their feelings.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like
in fact, sometimes you will do it on purpose.
Yes,
because
exactly.
that's exactly what your intention is, to hurt their feelings. You're not actually debating the point or arguing whatever it is anymore. Now it's just about inflicting pain on you. And I'm going to say whatever I can in order to hurt you as quickly as possible. Yeah.
So question for our listeners, callers, text. Do you think there's more here? So I still wrestle, especially with the Cybertruck, right? Here you have a guy that's Green Beret trained. Like he has been trained to build explosives, and he could buy all the material if he wants. There's fertilizer bombs. I was talking with law enforcement yesterday about this.
Yeah.
Could have built something similar to what Timothy McVeigh did if he really wanted to damage Trump Tower. By the way, now no more cars are going to be getting close to Trump Tower.
Yeah, not at all.
But if he wanted to build something similar to Oklahoma City, he was trained to do so.
Yeah.
So he could have leveled half that building, could have rented a truck, could have done all that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, he gets literally a bulletproof truck, fills it with fireworks and camping fuel.
Yeah.
Which, that's like propane.
Yeah.
Which anybody could buy. And then shoots himself. Well, lights the fuse, I guess, then shoots himself, and did this after driving to Vegas, which from Colorado is a hoof. What is that? Like 12 hours almost?
I don't know if it's that long. It's been a long since I've done the road trip.
Right. I went to college in Santa Barbara, so we would drive through it every time I went back to school. And it was often a place where we would stop to stay because it was such a long day. You had to drive through the mountains, get to Grand Junction, then all the way through St. George, Utah, then to Vegas. So it was a commitment. This guy has to stop, charge his truck, and then his IDs are all there. There's just a lot there that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, see, I think if we're talking about with Rory, it makes a lot of sense as far as the idea that this is probably most likely a suicide attempt. That seems very, very likely because, as you pointed out, if he was trying to make a larger explosion or trying to damage Trump Tower, he could have. And rather than saying, why didn't he choose the larger truck? Why didn't he choose the fertilizer? I think you ask the other question, why did he choose the fireworks and the propane? What was his intent? And at that point, someone with this type of training, the intent was a small localized explosion, something that wasn't going to do large damage. In fact, it seems like he may even have chosen the Cybertruck to minimize casualties around him. He was going to make a statement, but he was going to make sure that the possible casualties of everybody else in the area were going to be minimized based on the vehicle that he chose. And for me, the idea that he lights the fuse first and then shoots himself, he ensures death. He doesn't wait for the thing to explode. He doesn't wait for that, because that could go wrong. That could go very wrong. He could end up just, horribly scarred, burned, but not dead, not getting to the end goal of what he wants. So the fact that he kills himself first and then does the fuse, this tells me psychologically this is a statement. And the reason that he made all of these choices. Now, I don't know why Vegas. Maybe Vegas, there was something special there. Maybe it was something to do with the
Trump Tower.
No, I don't think. And again, I don't think, because we know that he's a Trump he's a Trump supporter. I don't think so. I'm kind of stripping away some of the political motivation that I felt was behind it yesterday. I feel this is an emotional statement. And I'm guessing either the wife or the ex-girlfriend, there's something in Vegas. There was a weekend. There's a memory. There's something there. It may or may not have been at the Trump Tower. He may have just decided to pick the Tesla and the Trump Tower just to make that kind of a weird connection. But again, I think he chose the Tesla for a specific reason, because he was trying to mitigate any external, innocent damage. And I'm guessing there was something in Vegas that he and the ex-wife spent a wonderful time. Maybe it's where he proposed. Maybe it's one of the first major getaway dates they did, where they went, and they shared a hotel room before getting. Maybe that's where they spent their honeymoon. Maybe it was something where they had a fantastic trip together. But I feel by going there and doing it, it's a statement to the other people in his life, because now if the ex-wife comes back there with someone else, or the ex-girlfriend comes back there with someone else, they now know he died there. So you can't come there, and that place is no longer special. So I'm thinking he's taking that memory away, and he's dirtying that memory. He's saying this is no longer going to be a happy place. You're always going to have this memory when you come back here, whatever you're doing. That's my guess based on what we're seeing.
That's a really interesting analysis, Bill. I'd love to hear from our listeners. 303-696-1971. Text messages 0512. They love you're the amateur psychologist.
Yeah, they're poking fun at me anyway, and I'm sit there. I'm just saying. I'm just guessing.
It's a good. I don't know. Look, I posted this yesterday that it seems like the personal problems do seem to be the connection.
Yeah,
from my perspective, and if you've had anybody in your life go through this, how much a divorce can wreck somebody. Like it is.
Oh yeah.
It is not like, oh, we're done.
No.
Like you end up with self-doubt.
Oh, yeah.
You end up with pain. You end up with family separation. You end up in financial turmoil. It is brutal.
Yeah, and it's also
like one of the most brutal things I've ever watched some people go through.
It's so hard because again, it's an acknowledgement of failure, that you weren't enough and you weren't enough for them. And that whatever the thing happened there, and maybe they felt that, maybe you didn't think they were enough for you, that there is this, you thought that the two of you would complete each other. And now you have to tear those bonds apart. And it is incredibly difficult. That's why I talk to my kids about the idea of when you're living with someone versus getting married. I'm like, married is a commitment. Living with someone, that's cool, but you're technically still roommates. One of you can pick up and leave at the drop of a hat, and it doesn't matter. Yes, the person left behind is going to be dealing with a lot of the bills and other stuff, but it's different inside of a marriage because you have to uncouple the two people in a way you don't have to if you're just living together. I said that's a different level of commitment, because it says during those rough times, that exit door at the front door, or maybe even run out the back door or run out the garage, isn't necessarily there inside of a marriage. There's more of an impetus to try to either grow through this or really discuss how this thing is going to come apart and what the two of you are going to do. And it is absolutely awful. People that I know that have gone through divorce, it has been, as you've said, one of the most difficult things they've faced in their entire life, because it's a lot of self-searching. And again, you have to come to grips with something that was so important in your life became a failure. That's hard. That's hard for anybody.
And you saw with the guy in Houston, that then drove through Bourbon Street in New Orleans. he was writing emails to his ex-wife's, I think this was his second marriage that fell apart.
I think so.
Writing to her attorney saying, I literally have to finalize this divorce because I'm $27,000 in debt and my home's going to be foreclosed on. I can't afford this anymore. They just get pushed to the brink.
Yeah. And
so,
and when you're at that brink and you're looking at the idea, he lived in a trailer park. And so the idea is he's not being evicted from his, McMansion. He's not even being evicted from his luxury condo, not even from his valuable townhome. He's at what many people consider in that trailer one of the bottom levels of housing rungs in our society. It's one of the first and easiest ways to get into housing. But also, if you're going down the other direction, it's one of the last stops before you end up homeless. And he's looking at $27,000 in debt and going to lose his house. He's not going to qualify to get into an apartment. Based on what he's doing for work, and I don't know what it was at the time, he probably, based on our housing costs, can't. And so he's looking at this going, I could potentially be homeless and on the streets and everything else in a few months. And why is my life falling apart? Well, my solution may be to, and he found something that gave him a purpose, which unfortunately was ISIS, and then decided, I'm going to let everybody else feel my pain. I'm going to tear apart your lives like my life I feel is being torn apart right now. Yeah, it's awful.
So give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Is there more to the story here? Do you look at what happened in Colorado with the Colorado Springs active duty soldier who blew up the Cybertruck in Las Vegas and go, there's something more here? Is it an attack? Is it just a moment of desperation and suicide? As he shoots himself, he could have blown it up a lot bigger. He chose not to, just put some fireworks in the back and drove up to the front door of Trump Tower in Vegas and do that. Or is this a combination of social and emotional problems that you see when men go through divorces? And that's what led the guy in Las Vegas to seek out and join ISIS. He was looking to belong in something after his personal life fell apart, and he found what he was looking for in ISIS and then committed his life there. Is that what happened in Las Vegas as well? Would love to hear your thoughts and questions. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Speaking of Dan Caplis, I love this guy. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case sends a message to everyone else involved in the case about what your values are and what you're trying to do. And so, you just hire one of those attorneys. You saw him go by on a bus billboard. Well, it's going to send the message that, you're not that serious about getting justice. You're just trying to get, maybe a paycheck out of this injury case. Dan Caplis is about justice, right? He's about doing what's right for the people involved in a tragic injury case. He's the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who were hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a great solid values, Dan is a real winner in the courtroom. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. You might be asking yourself, well, can I afford this guy? Well, it comes down to his commitment to service. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So chances are you're not on the side of a road right now going, well, this was serendipitous. I'm going to now call Dan Caplis. So when that accident happens, and you're having to deal with law enforcement and paramedics, and God forbid someone in your family's heading to the hospital, and you got to call the insurance company as well, and all that, you're going to sit down at that point and Google Dan Caplis Law? How about you put the phone number right now in your phone so you can quickly get a hold of Dan Caplis? Here it is. Ready? 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551. Or hit Dan Caplis Law if you want to learn more about all the services he provides. DanCaplisLaw.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Areas of fog, some of it dense to start the day, then becoming partly to mostly cloudy. Temperatures will be upper 40s and low 50s. Areas of fog may reform tonight, lows in the 20s. Mostly cloudy Saturday, maybe some fog in the morning. Colder, highs 30s and low 40s with snow showers by afternoon. Snow likely Saturday night into Sunday morning. We could pick up some light accumulations. Upper teens Saturday night, colder Sunday, highs low 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Officials are acknowledging that there are, quote, very strange similarities between the two terror suspects who carried out attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas. Shamsa Dinjabar, who drove his truck through a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing at least 14 people, was a former U.S. Army sergeant from Texas, while Matthew Livisberger, who blew up a Tesla Cybertruck in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, killing himself and injuring 7 others, was a U.S. Army Special Forces sergeant from Colorado. In addition to their military backgrounds, they both served in Afghanistan in 2009, and both men used the same rental car app called Turo to get the electric vehicles they used to carry out the attacks. And that's not all. Both men also spent time at a massive Army base in North Carolina.
The subject served at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. What we do know about that is it's a very large military base, and we have no record that they served in the same unit or even at the same years at Fort Bragg.
Even so, law enforcement says there doesn't appear to be any definitive link between the two deadly attacks, with Sheriff Kevin McMahill saying they will not rule anything out at this point. A big blow coming in for the Biden administration after an appeals court ruled that the FCC did not have legal authority to reinstate net neutrality rules.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
failed relationships hurt no matter what. The Las Vegas guy could have just offed himself without attacking other people. He had a sickness that went unidentified and unhelped.
Yeah,
that is going to be a really big question here.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think that.
And what did the military know?
Yeah, the other part though is if it is unidentified and unhelped, is that then the motivation for him to act this way, that he feels unseen, he feels unhelped, and if he says none of y'all around me are paying attention to I'm going through, none of y'all around me are helping me, well, I'm now going to make a statement. I am going to make you pay attention, and some of that you see with, and this is kind of a bad analogy, but that's kind of the thing that I do here. Bad analogies at times. The idea of what happens, and we've seen that with kids that are between the ages of 3 and 6, when they're in a group of adults and no one's paying attention to them. You know, you get the mom, mommy, mommy, mom, and or they'll jump around and they'll start making a scene in front of the adults for them to pay attention to. They'll do a silly dance or something. They'll do something in order to get the adults around them to pay attention. Again, it's an inelegant analogy, but I think it's somewhat of the same psychology, that if you are ignoring what I'm going through and what I'm feeling right now, then I am going to externalize that. But it could, and it easily could be because he felt unhelped and unseen. Yeah.
Now, with this conversation, we're almost giving him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't actually try to harm anybody.
I agree. I am giving him the benefit of the doubt on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he picked the Cybertruck for a purpose, knowing it was bulletproof.
Yeah.
Drives up, doesn't fill it with enough explosives to actually even break the windows. You do have a guy that was like standing right by with luggage.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're a little different in that sense, because the guy in New Orleans mowed over a whole bunch of people. He was like aiming at people, right?
Yeah.
Then he puts bombs together in places to try to blow them up to kill additional people. He jumps out of the car. He shoots at people. People are dying all around him. He wanted to go out religiously.
Yes.
With ISIS, right? He was like, this is a religion that's calling me to kill as many innocent people as I can before I die.
Yeah. And I think it allows him also to externalize his pain. It allows him and this is one of the critiques that I really disagree on the fundamentalists on the Islamic religion, is the ideas of killing the infidels. That's viewed as being okay. And I disagree necessarily with it. A God that you view as necessary, all loving, and omnipresent, that it's motivating you to kill people that may not believe in this particular brand or blend of your religion. I find that to be just so against the idea of a creator, but it allows him the permission to do so, because now he's being a faithful religious follower, because by doing this, he is guaranteed rewards in heaven. And so if this for him, if the religion is offering him the solace, this now becomes the solution as well. The violence to get away from his pain is now blessed by the religion he's following. And that creates a really dangerous cycle.
What do you think's going on? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Okay, fine. It's not firing. This is great. The machine. Here we go. We're going to try this again. Push the button now. Hey, look at that.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy, it's Friday, which makes it a special loser edition.
Yes, it is that time of the day where we get to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show with a twist. These are the stories that Jeff and Blake felt weren't worthy of our attention. The losers.
You are one pathetic loser.
Let's go.
Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser. You are such a loser. Loser.
No,
Yes, this is
nice.
the loser edition of You
Not
Choose
nice
the
to
News.
do this the day after Phil Weiser announced his candidates.
That is true. Okay, we will call this the Phil Weiser edition of You Choose the News. Very special Phil Weiser edition for a Friday. Yes, we all know what this means. Okay, here are the returning headlines for Jeff and Blake on the very special Phil Weiser edition. We're going to throw that in a lot this morning. Okay, headline number 1, do some harm. Headline number 2, not in the hand or the bush. Headline number 3, competition no show. And headline number 4, sorry kids, camp's closed. Jeff, your choice, sir.
Not in the hand or the bush.
Yeah, not in the hand or in the bush. A sudden death of a 35-year-old man became very shocking recently in India. He collapsed at home after feeling dizzy, fainting shortly after taking a bath. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where he passed away. Doctors were really initially puzzled about the cause of death until they got to the autopsy. What did they find in the autopsy? As they were cutting up his body, they discovered a live baby bird trapped in his esophagus. Basically, what he had been doing is he had been taking part of an occult fertility ritual in which the person has to ingest a live baby bird. It got stuck in his throat. He didn't realize it. Went home. Later on, it cut off both his airway and his ability to eat, and he died. For dropping a baby bird. Yes.
Not much fertility there.
No, and I keep looking at the idea of the conversation. It's really going to help this fertility. I know that maybe little Jimmy isn't standing up the way that he used to, or not having the babies or something. You're like, swallow the baby bird. You're like, excuse me. How is this the thing? When it was working fine, I hadn't swallowed a bird. What happened here? How come? What happens? I don't get it. I just don't. Yeah, I know. Oh well, science is hard. Blake Olson in the newsroom, sir. Do some harm. Competition no show, or sorry kids, camp's closed.
Competition no show.
Yeah, competition no show. A Texas teenager has been charged with animal cruelty. She was very worried about a rival in an upcoming competition. So she killed her rival. Well, technically killed her rival's pet goat. The 17-year-old is alleged to have used a drench gun to force feed a toxic pesticide to a competition show goat named Willie at the Vista Ridge High School in Cedar Park. Now, they have her on closed-circuit television walking into the barn, grabbing the drench gun and shoving it down the goat's throat and making sure it has enough pesticide where it passes away about 21 hours later.
Much easier ways to kill than doing this. This is crazy.
Yeah, the idea is she felt that the other person was cheating, and so she felt she had to cheat in order to teach her a lesson. And she did.
Feed?
Yeah. And pesticide down the goat's throat, and then it died 21 hours later.
Couldn't just unlock the gate and let it walk away.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Goat. Yeah,
I
have no idea. I have no idea what happened.
Wrench feed it.
All right, our final story this morning in the special Phil Weiser edition. Jeff Hunt, do some harm, or sorry kids, camp's closed.
Do some harm and vote for Phil Weiser.
Do some harm, yes. That may be what happened here. Anthony Olson wanted a career. He wanted children, a partner, someone that he could hike Montana's trails with. But early on in his life, he had a diabetes diagnosis. He also had a kidney transplant that failed at the age of 29. He hung close to those dreams, but then they all came crashing down in early 2011 when he was diagnosed with an early form of pre-leukemia, a blood disorder. So he underwent extensive chemotherapy for 9 years, only to find out recently the doctor lied to him. He didn't have.
No.
Yes, he didn't. And the doctor has done this before. The doctor's accused on a number of cases of purposefully misdiagnosing patients and making sure they have very expensive, very painful, and very invasive surgeries and treatments. The crazy part is, even though the hospital knew this guy was alleged to be doing this, they kept him on staff until 2020.
Nice.
Yes.
Lawsuits all around.
Yes.
Off with their heads.
Hey, the other one that we didn't
Evil.
get to in the Phil Weiser edition as we're closing out is the closing of the One Heartland camp in northern Minnesota, one of the nation's largest summer camps for kids that are HIV positive. They don't have enough kids. We've done such a good job at not letting infants be infected with HIV. They don't have
Glad
enough
to
kids for the
hear
camp.
that.
It's a great way to close the camp. All right, back to you guys.
Wow. It is. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. and it's a Friday, January 3rd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. Let's get to work. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Before we go into news and comment with Blake Olson, let's check in on the phone lines. Jack, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, Jack.
Yeah, good morning. I just turned the radio on. I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Did you say you had a story about a guy who passed away swallowing a live bird?
Yeah, it came out
Something about fertility?
Yeah, it came out of India. It's a really crazy story, and I'm glad you're joining us. And you got in the late of our Phil Weiser edition, if you choose the news, because it's the loser edition. So yeah, basically a 35-year-old man in India collapsed at his home, was dizzy, fainted, and they took him to the hospital. He passed away a short time later, and they couldn't figure out why. And when they were doing the autopsy, and they're cutting him open, they discovered a live baby bird wedged inside of his throat. And they're saying that probably cut off or restricted his ability to breathe, and that's what killed him. And they said he was visiting what's the word for it? An occultist, but they called it a tantric at the time, and he was struggling with infertility and wanted to become a father. So for whatever reason, the person advising him said, obviously the solution is small bird in the throat, which is a weird solution.
Is he related to Phil Weiser? What does Phil Weiser have to do with it?
The Phil Weiser thing is because the reason that we're doing that is the Friday thing is the loser edition of You Choose the News, all the stories that Jeff and Blake don't pick early in the week. And we're not a huge fan of Phil. And Phil has announced that he's going to be running for governor. And yesterday he made his announcement. And Phil Weiser's announcement garnered about 600 likes on social media, while Jeff poking fun at him got 1,600 likes on social media. So showing you the amount of pull that Phil already has. He's already losing just that simple competition. So that's why it was the Phil Weiser edition this Friday. Just a special edition.
I have one question. Yes. I just have one question.
No, we're not drinking that much this morning.
Okay. Well, I've already started drinking. All right. Well, I only have one question. And is this guy an idiot? Was he a Democrat?
I heard. Thank you so much, Jack. Yes, I heard he was a longtime Kamala voter. Yes, you're exactly right, sir. Congratulations. Thank you for ending it on that way.
The question I got for you is, did the bird survive?
Yes, it was alive when they pulled it out. That's the crazy part. Yes.
Could you imagine? So,
I know.
Can you imagine him trying to explain to his friends what he just went through?
Oh yeah, he's like, dude, you won't believe it. Yeah, it's just like when we pull the fish out of the water and we throw them back. You know, they go back and go, you won't believe what happened. And like, damn it, Steve's talking about aliens again.
So this bird gets swallowed, not chewed, swallowed whole.
Yes, that's the part.
Right. Yeah. Gets stuck, hanged out in the esophagus for what, like 12 hours?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, somewhere around 12 hours. Yeah. Just there.
Long enough for the guy to die.
Yes.
Then waits longer for the autopsy to take place, gets cut open.
Yeah.
The esophagus gets cut open, and then he gets released and freed.
Yeah. And he's like, what the hell happened? However, there's some stuff in nature that's even more crazy. I don't know if you've seen this sometimes, but it happens occasionally with herons. They will feed on live eels. And if the eels are still alive when they get into the stomach, they'll try to chew their way out. And oftentimes you will see live eels chew their way out of the stomach of the heron. They'll come out of the bottom of the bird. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Kill your food before you eat it, kids. Just a little bit of a lesson.
Speaking of wild, there's some breaking news coming from the Gazette here in Colorado Springs. They got the text messages of Matthew Livelsberger that he texted his ex-girlfriend right before he committed suicide. This is the guy that drove the Cybertruck up to the Trump Tower. And there's like no inklings whatsoever that he was struggling with any mental health issues. In fact, he's like celebrating the fact he got this Cybertruck. He loves it, how fast he is, his new shoes, how they go with his new shoes, all this stuff. So
interesting.
That's crazy. I'll post this on the X account. X.com/Jeff Hunt.
Glad they got a hold of it.
Read, but Gazette, you know, this guy's from Colorado Springs. They're going to stay on top of this.
Yeah.
That's the only newspaper worth reading left in Colorado's Gazette.
Yeah.
Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
All right. Hey, good morning, guys. 23 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 54 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, car sharing app Turo is facing new scrutiny after authorities revealed that the vehicles used in the New Orleans attack and the Las Vegas explosion on New Year's Day were both rented through the platform. So far, investigators believe that's a coincidence, and NBC News' Antonia Hilton says that Turo is standing by its screening practices.
In a statement, a Turo spokesperson saying in part, "We do not believe that either renter involved in the Las Vegas and New Orleans attacks had a criminal background that would have identified them as a security threat. We remain committed to maintaining the highest standards in risk management."
However, a former ATF senior executive says Turo may provide a little more anonymity for car renters, allowing them to avoid airports and other retail locations that may be busy and have cameras. Turo gives customers the option of picking up a car from a remote location using an app to unlock it. Las Vegas Metro Police say the driver of the rented Cybertruck that exploded in front of the Trump International Hotel suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Investigators believe 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger shot himself seconds before the explosion, which also left 7 people with minor injuries. He was active duty military, most recently living in the Springs, and had a newborn baby. The truck was rented in Denver on December 28th via, once again, the Turo app. The FBI says there's no link between the terrorist attack in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas. 14 people were killed and dozens more injured when that truck plowed through a crowded street during New Year's celebrations. After the attack, the Sugar Bowl just blocks away was postponed until last night, and Allstate, the sponsor, and their CEO felt the need to lecture and make a woke statement before the game last night.
Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we...
Thanks for the lecture. Tom Wilson is his name, and he's the CEO, and they made him read that. But if he's the leader, he shouldn't have read it. The brother of the terrorist spoke last night.
We're all grieving about this. This wasn't the man I knew. This wasn't the father, the son that I knew. And that also, this isn't any representation of Al-Islam or Muslims or the Muslim community. Our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to those families, the victims of those families, and those who were there to witness it.
The FBI says just hours earlier, Shamsuddin Jabbar posted videos to social media pledging his support for the terrorist group ISIS. The 119th U.S. Congress will be sworn in today. The 2-year term will get underway after the House members are sworn in. First, they'll have to elect a speaker, and it's not clear if Republican Mike Johnson has the votes needed to retain the position. The GOP controls both the House and the Senate. The Republicans hold just a slim majority in the House. President Biden is set to award the nation's highest military decoration to 7 U.S. Army veterans today. 5 of the recipients were killed in combat. All 7 served either in Vietnam or Korea.
Chance to add to a 3-point lead. Play fake. Leonard to the end zone. Touchdown Irish. Bo Collins.
Notre Dame is moving on in the college football playoff semifinals to the semifinals. The Fighting Irish took down Georgia 23-10 in Thursday's Sugar Bowl to advance to take on Penn State in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard ran for 80 yards and threw a touchdown in the victory. None of the teams that won the conference championships and received byes in the playoff, they advanced to the semifinals. 19 in Parker, 21 in Sheridan, 23 in Denver. Jeff and Billy, they return. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Areas of fog, some of it dense to start the day, then becoming partly to mostly cloudy. Temperatures will be upper 40s and low 50s. Areas of fog may reform tonight, lows in the 20s. Mostly cloudy Saturday, maybe some fog in the morning. Colder, highs 30s and low 40s with snow showers by afternoon. Snow likely Saturday night into Sunday morning. We could pick up some light accumulations. Upper teens Saturday night, colder Sunday, highs low 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center. Areas of fog, some of
Billy, do you think it was an addiction to divisiveness that caused the problem on New Year's morning on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, like the CEO of Allstate said?
I don't know. I do think, though, that he's got a point about we seem to be looking for the divisiveness here in America as a society. I do think that he's got that point, that we are more often looking for those things that separate us than those things that we have in common. I do think that he's got a point based on the direction we are going. I think that the statement that he read was written by a bunch of corporate communications people that don't write, advertising communication, don't write marketing communication, are trying to do some stuff legally. There's not a heck of a lot there. It's a feel nice statement, but yeah, I think we're very divided.
I think it caused more problems than it actually solved.
How? I'm curious about that.
Oh my gosh, dude! X is blowing up on this. I mean, it's the top of trending right now.
But
Allstate
blowing up
CEO comments sparks controversy amid New Orleans terror attack.
Yeah, but controversy over what? What's controversial about that statement?
It's so tone deaf. Here's why people voted for Trump. In part, they're so tired of this progressive softballing that doesn't actually confront the problems that we're facing. So Phil Weiser on Next last night is a perfect example of this, right? Like there's crime in the streets. And he gets on and goes, well, recidivism programs need to be... No, arrest the bad guys. Just solve the problem. And in this case, you get the Allstate CEO that goes, we in this culture have an addiction to divisiveness. No, a radical Islamist got in a truck and drove over people. Like, confront the problem directly. Quit being so afraid of offending other people that we're not actually going to take on the challenges that are harming. You have dead people in the street, 14 dead people in the street, because this guy got radicalized. I mean, I'm looking at videos of his apartment or his trailer. He's got the Quran there. He's got it all open. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what radical Islamism does to people and confront it. Don't take a moment on national television with the nation watching, following this terrible tragedy, and come out there and say we have an addiction to divisiveness. It's but like,
do we want to confront extremism?
Gosh, like
as a society, though, do we want to confront extremism?
Sure.
No, we don't. No,
we don't.
No, not at
Who
all.
Who doesn't want to confront radical Islamism?
No.
Like,
I didn't say radical Islam. I said extremism.
But
and that's a
why,
different statement.
But why are we going off on these other things? Why are we going off on extremism in general or a divisiveness? Like,
here's the reason why.
We're addressing this actual issue, and the issue is a guy that was a radical Islamist got in a truck and drove over a bunch of people. Address that problem. Why are we going off into other problems?
Hang on, I got to grab the phone. I can't. Sorry.
Okay. Billy and I are going, speaking of divisiveness and what may be happening down at the nation's capital today, there's going to be a vote on who is going to be the Speaker of the House. And joining us to provide some perspective is Jon Decker, White House Correspondent. Big day, Washington, D.C. Is Mike Johnson going to continue his term as Speaker of the House? John, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, that's the big question. We already know one House Republican, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, has said he's a no vote. And because of the very narrow majority that Republicans have in the House for this 119th Congress, that Mike Johnson only has one vote to spare. And that is too close to comfort. There are a number of House Republicans that are non-committal. They have not publicly said how they're going to vote. And so when the vote begins at noon Eastern time today, I don't think anybody knows with certainty how that vote will go.
Wow, it's coming up here in just a few hours. Now, Donald Trump has supported Mike Johnson. Is that right?
He has endorsed Mike Johnson, and that counts for a lot with a lot of Republicans in the House of Representatives. In fact, a vast majority of House Republicans will vote for Mike Johnson. But we saw this just, a short while ago when Kevin McCarthy was ousted. All it takes is a handful of members to bring down the speaker. And that's the reason why I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to 8 House Republicans in particular, besides Thomas Massey, in terms of how they vote when this vote goes down a little bit later today.
Talking with Jon Decker, White House correspondent. Big vote today on whether or not to retain Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. One of the folks we've been watching is Chip Roy. Do you have a sense of where he's going to be on Mike Johnson?
He's non-committal. He has not indicated how he's going to vote. I know that he has been criticized quite a bit over the years by Donald Trump, but he's in a safe Republican district. So the threats, the taunts, the criticism really doesn't bother him. He's one of those 8 members that I referenced who have not indicated how they're going to vote. Keep in mind, it took 15 rounds of voting for Kevin McCarthy to win the speakership 2 years ago. I don't know how many rounds it will take Mike Johnson. He may win it on the first round. But that's something that you also have to keep your mind open to, is the idea that it's not going to happen right away.
In our district, where the show broadcasts and reaches, is Lauren Boebert's district. And she seemed yesterday on OAN with Matt Gaetz to be willing to support Mike Johnson. I think that what she was looking for is that Chip Roy would receive some form of committee leadership position. Is that right?
Well, she's not one of those 8 people that I referenced that are non-committal. I think that she's a yes vote for Mike Johnson. As it relates to those individuals that have not said how they're going to vote, those individuals, may want some concessions of some sort from Speaker Johnson in terms of getting them from a no or on the fence to a yes, whether it's a specific position on a specific committee or whether it's another concession perhaps on a legislative issue. That is, what various members, have in terms of power to hold over Speaker Johnson before he gets their vote.
Talking with Jon Decker, White House correspondent. John, it's important to get this done so that new members can be sworn in and the president can be sworn in. Is that right? I mean, there's a lot tied to getting a clear vote done pretty quickly here.
Well, you can't do any business in the House of Representatives until you have a House Speaker. That's why it literally is the first order of business. There are new members that have traveled to Washington. They have families in town. They want to get sworn in today. So a lot is riding on them. And, I'm sure that, Speaker Johnson worked hard to help them get elected so that he likely has their vote, in his pocket. But there is a lot tied to it, including the certification of the presidential vote that takes place on Monday, January 6th. You can't have that certification unless you have a House Speaker.
Jon Decker, White House correspondent. Final question. We know Mike Johnson's the big name on there, but has anyone floated any other names for Speaker of the House?
There's no plan B. But we saw this, when Kevin McCarthy was ousted, there was no plan B. And then Mike Johnson emerged out of nowhere to become the next Speaker of the House.
Well, this all takes place beginning today at noon Eastern, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We'll continue to follow it. Jon Decker, White House correspondent, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
So,
This is gonna be
Bill,
interesting.
to his point, Lauren Boebert not on the questionable list, thinks that she'll get behind Mike Johnson. I think that's the case, too.
I do, too, based on her statement.
She's big part of Donald Trump's MAGA movement, and this is what Donald Trump wants, and so she has no problem
Yeah, and then the statement she
getting
made about
in line and supporting his vision.
And I know that she's friends with Chip Roy. They've both been in the studio together with us. And I think what she's trying to do is broker that deal. Is she's trying to say, hey, rather than having Chip come out and say, I want this, give me this, or she's coming out and saying, you know, it would be cool. We do this for Chip, and I'm certain that we can get his vote. But the fact that you've got Massey as a no, and you can only lose one more, and you've got about 8, this is not good. And the question I've got in this, and this is just kind of a larger question, is this is why I will come back and I'll continue to push back on this when guests come on the air and callers and things, and they talk about Donald Trump having a mandate. This mandate is 1 vote in the House. That's a mandate. You know, we had someone earlier this week talk about how it was this overwhelming support of Donald Trump's administration and his plans for America, and that's why they gave him the White House and the House and the Senate, and that's why it's this overwhelming mandate. That's 1 vote in the House. Again, I question that idea, but both sides, both the Democrats and the Republicans, use the term mandate all the time.
Oh, that's because they want.
Because it means more. Yeah, it means more.
They want the momentum from the election.
Yeah.
We didn't just barely win. We won big.
And
so
the idea
let
is,
us do what we want.
And a mandate really just means you won. It doesn't mean you had a landslide, but we're using it as a loaded word. It really just means you're the winner. So it's used technically correct, but it's used in a way to color the conversation. And so if it's a mandate, where is the huge mandate? And the other part is, and this is kind of a... Okay, again, weird analogy. Let's do this one again. So we're talking a little bit before John joined us about divisiveness. Well, here's divisiveness in America right now inside of the House. You know, we can't get all the Republicans to agree on who the speaker is. Now, there was some pushback during Pelosi's term. There were some people that ran, but it wasn't anything near this. And that's what I can't really figure out is why, if the GOP feels they have so many big things to get done, and they are given a window of opportunity that we know based on Trump's previous administration lasts probably 2 years, because midterms are going to change the makeup of both legislative bodies. So you got 2 good years. Why is the GOP effing around doing this? Because you realize we got to confirm Donald Trump's election on Monday. You don't have a speaker by that. That's going to push everything back. And are we going to go another 14 days of them in session trying to, and then you got to confirm Donald Trump, and then it's going to happen just before inauguration and a whole bunch of other stuff. And that just means, remember, you know how often these people meet. They're not in session all the time. So they have a limited amount of days in order to make things better or harm America, depending on your perspective. And that's what they're looking at. They're burning candlelight, man. I don't understand it.
2 reasons.
Yeah.
Why this happens.
Yeah.
Okay. One is the nature of being a conservative. We really like to argue over issues. If you've ever been to a conservative coalition meeting, which I've attended, just about all of them out there, it's just par for the course.
Yeah. Can I throw something in there though that I think is interesting about this disagreement with on the speaker is conservatives normally want to maintain the status quo, but not in this case. They don't want to maintain the status quo. So I find it interesting that the conservatives don't want to go along with what is the apparent status quo. But continue.
Well, no. What they're trying to conserve are tried and true principles. And so we care deeply about what we think works right. And those are rooted in principles that have been time tested. And so we'll debate them. I mean, we'll really go after
principles that were once the status quo. And that's what I mean by that. They were principles that were once the status quo. And at times society has moved beyond them or has held on to them. And that's the conservation. It is the conservation of what is the status quo at a time. Yeah.
So conservatives naturally debate and don't get in line with orders that come from on top. Okay. It's kind of like this. You have this almost visceral reaction when somebody that's a party leader or Donald Trump or anybody else just says, this is what we're doing, get in line, we're all going this direction. You kind of have this innate kind of personal response that goes, wait, hold on. And it's just because it's the nature of being a conservative. We're ground up on principles as opposed to top down orders that Democrats seem to be more attuned to accepting and willing to get in line. The second thing, and this is I talk to Republican strategists all the time about it. When we get power, we are incredibly and pathetically weak with it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Republicans
I'd
do
agree with
this
that.
all the time. We'll get like total power like we have right now. And then we'll go, gee, golly, I sure hope that the Democrats don't get offended by what we're doing. Let's find ways to find common ground with our Democrat, as opposed to just driving an agenda and going, we got it. We got the ball. Get out of the way. We're moving it down the field. And if you don't like it, we're going to bowl over you. It's another thing that Republicans constantly do. They get the control and then they just back off and try to find ways to compromise with the other side. It is incredibly infuriating.
Well, here's the thing that I'd push on that a little bit, because if we go back to the recent continuing resolution to keep the government open, it was the push of all get our way or nothing. That was the design of the Republicans. That's why they rejected the first compromise bill. So I'm not certain I agree with you all the time on that.
Right.
I feel the Republicans, in all honesty, this is recently, not going back like 20 years, but in the previous 2 decades, I feel in some ways when Republicans get control of Congress, they have lost the ability to govern because they don't understand how and where to make some of those compromises. I think that in the larger continuing resolution, the first one, there were some good things in there that didn't need to be bounced out, but they were because we had to. And then we came through with the Donald Trump approved continuing resolution, and that one failed as well. And so that's where the idea of, pushing through your agenda, I don't think even the Republicans can get on board and all get in the same boat and start rowing. Where the Democrats yell and scream behind doors and eventually get in the boat. Yeah, and eventually
This
get in
is
the
the
boat.
problem I mentioned in the first. So the second problem suffers from the first problem.
Yes,
that
you're
we
right.
naturally like to debate.
There we
don't
are.
like top down
Circle
orders.
of life. Yes.
Speaking of pushing through things, some
Yes.
people out there have health problems that they're trying to push
Oh,
through.
do they ever? Do they ever? And I used to do that. I used to sit there and push through some health problems that I have. Used to think that, that tingling in my leg, that isn't that bad. Oh, it's okay if I just sit this way in the chair. Then I can deal with this. Or, it's just now that my shoulder aches when the cold weather is coming, because now it's what you used to have with, the old Farmer's Almanac, and it's just acting up because the weather changing, and that's just normal. And no, that is not normal. I was living my life in daily pain, but I found a team that is absolutely amazing because they've changed all of that. I don't have that daily pain anymore. I don't have the sciatica. I don't have the bum shoulder that's aching all the time. It's because of the amazing work of the people at Balance Wellspace. Check them out at balancewellspace.com. Brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking. And look for those big shady trees when you get there, because I hate coming back to a hot car afterwards, even in the winter. I'm a little weird, but you know that already. Now, here's the cool thing about Balance Wellspace. Integrative medicine. What they do is they put together a whole bunch of different treatments that you experience under one roof. We are talking about things like chiropractic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, neuropathic care, trigger point injections, regenerative care, and a whole bunch of cutting-edge Star Trek-like stuff that has got to be seen and experienced to be believed. But the coolest thing, all non-invasive, no surgeries, no cutting you open, no taking things out, and no putting things back in, and no long-term recovery. It's about using science to maximize your ability for your body to heal. As we're talking about it, I'm regenerating the disc in my lower back. I've got 2 vertebrae that are fusing together. We've used traction at Balance Wellspace to pull them apart, and now we have filled that slot, the part where I'm missing some of the disc, and it's growing back. So my sciatica is not there anymore. My back feels looser and more strong than it has in decades. The best part about it is I'm not waking up in the morning wondering how much I'm going to hurt. It's not there. And you can experience that too. When I was out shoveling snow during our last snowstorm, my back was fine. My snow shovel was given out. It wasn't the back. And my left knee, we've talked about it before. I'm regenerating the meniscus in my left knee. What they have the ability to do for you is nothing short of amazing. It's literally like the next level stuff that we used to see in sci-fi movies. But you've got to take the first step in order to start living your life without pain. Hey, we're kicking off a new year. By the time we get into spring, that pain can be gone. You can be running around and doing things this summer that you haven't done in years. But start today to take the first step. BalanceWellspace.com. Check them out, BalanceWellspace.com. When you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because boy, does it help us out. And I guarantee you, they're going to help you live better.
Great to hear that, Bill. When we come back, Lauren Boebert was on Matt Gaetz's new OAN show last night. What did she have to say about Speaker Mike Johnson? what are the betting markets saying about whether or not he's going to be retained as Speaker as well? We'll get to all that and more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Maybe Lauren can make it.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
New details are emerging about the personal life of Matthew Livelsberger and the moments leading up to the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Officials saying that Livelsberger's body was burned beyond recognition. However, they did find a Defense Department Common Access card with his name on it, showing him at the pay grade of E8 or Master Sergeant, multiple credit cards, and his iPhone. In addition, they say he shot himself in the head moments before the explosion.
The individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle. One of the handguns was found at his feet inside of the vehicle.
And we now know that Livelsberger was married and was on leave from active duty. The blast was caused by a bomb in the bed of the Cybertruck. His wife, who is believed to be Sarah Livelsberger, wrote on Facebook in 2016 that she was a registered Democrat. She posted a picture of a Democrat campaign graphic appearing to show Donald Trump, which read, quote, "Stop bigotry." She captioned the post, "Perks of being a registered Democrat. I can't wait to slap this baby on my truck." Matthew Livelsberger had 19 years of service in Special Forces and Intelligence and graduated summa cum laude from Norwich University.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
watching a movie with him the other day. What was it? Cold Mountain.
Really? Oh,
yeah, he's in that movie with who's the redhead
I
from?
don't. I can tell you the bands he's in
Australia.
though.
The one that married Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman.
Oh, Nicole Kidman, yeah.
Yeah, he was in that movie with her.
Oh, got to check out the Ray
Interesting.
Contours. They're fantastic. That Jack White album. The latest one's really good. Okay, sorry.
Welcome back to a Friday edition
Yes.
of Jeff and Bill Show. Speaking of craziness, it's about to get real crazy on here because we love it when he calls. Barney, good morning, Barney. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
First call of the new year. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, buddy. I'm pretty sure that's a compliment, Jeff.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You're
We
not the
know
only one.
because you're about to pop it off with Billy. That's what we love.
Oh no, I love Billy now. I'm trying to. I've turned a new leaf. I'm back to my Buddhist roots. I guess. Hell, I don't know.
In other words, on a side note, it means that Barney is now taking the whole pill every morning. So, yes.
Oh yeah.
You're
But
the best.
I want to, in the spirit of wokeness, to the CEO
Yeah.
of Allstate, get that man a 6-pack of Bud Light. He can drink the first one, and you know where you can shove the other 5, buddy? Yeah, right there. In the wokeness of,
I gotta tell you, Barney, I gotta tell you, that is really funny that I could see something where the Allstate CEO is sitting around the table going, "Well, guys, that didn't go so well. What can we do to correct this?" And and one of the guys around the table goes, "I know this guy called Kid Rock, and sir, have you ever had Bud Light?" I think so.
Yeah, and we would have to admit I'm a little bit he's kind of a knucklehead too, but that was kind of
absolutely.
But I would say, you know what? Just don't say anything, buddy. Keep your mouth shut. How about that? That's the best when you're when you know you're going to say something stupid like that and piss off all of them, especially when people are
Barney, do you want to know how much Tom Wilson collected as CEO in 2022?
Oh, I don't know, 30 million. You tell me.
Not well, about half that, $15 million. Dude made $15 million. That oh my gosh, that is like he's the classic CEO. Just kind of
I say make whatever you can make, and if it's a private company, shareholders elect you, and they do this. I mean,
That's true.
I just think it's and these, the CEO of whatchamacallit that was shot, horrible.
Yeah, United Healthcare.
Disgusting, but his salary was disgusting when your company is denying claims of people that are living in it's life and death, man. It's those Home Depot, if you want to make $100 million, this is not what I called, but if you want to make $100 million on 2x4s, go right ahead. But I don't see where anybody's that smart. Not even you.
Hey,
Bill.
Barney, here's something crazy. No, I'm definitely not smart. Hey, Barney, here's something crazy. I just run across a story, and I haven't dove too deep into it. Last 48 hours or so, I ran across it, and I've got it saved for reading later. But it was a story saying that United Healthcare has recently denied care for a woman that's in the hospital in a coma because they don't believe the care is necessary.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Buddy. They try to get health care at 63 years old, buddy. It's $850 a month.
Oh yeah, there's a statement from the Cigna CEO from a couple of years ago where he basically said the best thing that we can do for business is to deny 100% of the claims because only 53% of our insurers ever ask or fight a denial. Yeah. And it is much, and then we only approve 20% of those that have been denied the first time. So we are going to be much more profitable if we just start at the step of deny everything. That's how we make more money. And that's Cigna's CEO from a couple of years ago.
I'll agree with that, but you got to let me talk about what I called about. But let me say this about that.
Please.
If I'm a health insurance company and you're a doctor and you call me up and say, you're going to give this man a prostate biopsy to the butt, buddy, I'm going to deny that claim because sepsis is only 5%. So of a, that you can end up with an infection. So if that's 5%, so the guy that gets sepsis and ends up in the hospital, that's $80,000. So some of these doctors, they throw out these procedures. Yeah. They really don't give a care. They're not going to get sued for them. You know what? Braveheart didn't get that done. So all I would say to men is don't do it. When I was 22-year-old, I said, nope, you're never doing that one again, buddy. Never, ever again.
I wish I was that smart at 22. I really wish I was that smart at 22. I wish.
But hang on. So the guy with the bird, and Billy,
Yeah.
we know, Jeff, you're religious, and I think you'll even agree with this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that Charles Darwin may have been like spot on?
Oh, heck yes. Yes. It's I go back to George Carlin has this great line that he says, the kid that ate too many marbles growing up didn't grow up to have more kids. It kind of weeded itself out.
Exactly. But hang on a minute, and you guys, and the thing with the Muslim, why can't walking down the road, I bump into you, Jeff, or Billy, and you bump me and you say, hey, Barney, how you doing? Oh yeah, I'm a Muslim, and you're a Christian, and you just say, right on, buddy, and you walk on.
Yep.
You don't have to beat him up over the head with it.
Yeah.
And Franklin Graham came out, I don't remember when it was, but he had like a national message to people, like, Muslims, go in your closet, don't show your husband, tell Jesus you love, whatever it was. And it's like, it's so disgusting. It's like, let people be. Let them be who they are. There's a like a meme, and it's got like a rabbit, an elephant, Jesus, all these characters, Buddha, and it says something like, "There's 5,000 religions in the world. Don't worry, yours is the right one." We just really got to back off. Leave each other.
Right, my friend.
I don't know. Hey, I love you guys, Billy. I didn't yell at you again. I think I'm on a streak here.
I think you are, man. I think whatever New Year's
Something's
resolution you made is
changing
working here, man. I appreciate it.
Maybe I'm just smoking more pot.
Dude, you're the
Barney,
best, Barney. Have a great day.
sure
Happy New Year.
appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I love him.
That is always great to hear from Barney.
That's
Barney's
fantastic.
line's open, by the way. Join the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Matt Gaetz kicked it off last night, his new show on OAN. And Lauren Boebert joining him to talk about Mike Johnson. Here's some comments from Lauren Boebert last night.
I do believe that Mike Johnson coming out and committing to Chip Roy being the chairman of the Rules Committee would secure the vote on the first round with no significant battle afterwards.
All right. So Lauren Boebert getting behind and supporting Mike Johnson. Polymarket, the betting platform on politics, has Mike Johnson's chance of being elected at 90% at this point. So I think that's going to happen. Lauren Boebert, I mean, she's really built a career as a mover and shaker in Washington, D.C. and getting some of these deals done. You remember she was a mom, worked at McDonald's, and she's become quite the lawmaker. Very impressive. But that was Lauren Boebert on Matt Gaetz last night. You didn't like Matt Gaetz's look, Billy?
Yeah, I it's the TV thing, and we're on video here too, and so I'm a little more sensitive to that right now. And I don't know who did his makeup last night, but it was really bad because he was overdone on the forehead, and then they left out the coloring on his eyes, and so it gives you this really weird cat eye shadow thing that happens. It's like, okay, now, this is not good. Do I really want to do this more? Okay, I really like Harris Faulkner on Fox News. Okay, I think she does a decent job. One of the ones there that I actually appreciate. But I think her makeup person hates her because for years they haven't found the foundation that matches her skin tone. So her neck is a different color than the rest of her face. And I really wish they would do that they would someone would work with her makeup artist and say, let's do this. Yeah, but Matt looked a little weird last night, but that's just my own thing.
We got text messages coming in. Was Jeff about to insult a CEO based on how much he makes? No, Terry, I was just shocked that this guy gets to make $15 million a year and he's a dope. I mean, the idea that you would, as the CEO, go on and make that, this was such an unforced error. They didn't even have to do a video. Nobody in the entire country was going, I sure wonder what Allstate has to think about this terrorist attack that took place. They could have just totally let it go by. Or done a little graphic. Our hearts and thoughts and prayers with the victims of this terrorist attack, Allstate. But that video was such an unforced error. It drives me crazy. I've met CEOs, presidents that are just some of the dumbest people, and they get paid a ton of money, and God knows how they figured it out. All right, we'll continue.
Yeah, I know. I want that job.
Join the Jeff and Bill Show. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill show. In just a few hours, about 2 hours, the voting will begin on Mike Johnson becoming the Speaker of the House and whether or not he will retain that. Right now, Poly Market, the betting apps out there saying,
say?
Likely 90%.
So they think he will take it.
Yeah.
I think so too. I only because there's so much to get done. And I think at the end of the day, having that prolonged or protracted fight about speaker is just going to get in the way of everything else.
I disagree with that.
Yeah. Oh, really?
The reason is because Donald Trump is telling Republicans to do it. Republicans love a debate. Oh, we'd love to shut the government down, have no activities, just a prolonged debate. We wouldn't love that. At least there's a portion of them.
I'm not sure about that because Donald Trump did say to not pass the first continuing resolution, but he said get behind the second, and the second failed. So I'm not certain that.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be something that's going to be difficult for both he and co-president Musk, is that they don't get to tell people exactly what to do. I mean, you saw Musk the other day. He was telling, he was doing some stuff about telling England that they need, I think it was England or Germany, they need to release some political prisoners.
Yeah, England.
Yeah, and you're like, so what? The dude that's in charge of Twitter is telling me to release prisoners. So
He's
what?
got some power because power is influence.
Not in England, though.
Got influence.
Not necessarily in England, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that, by the way, that's a crazy story in itself because these folks are getting imprisoned for criticizing Islam in England. And
yeah, because their speech rules are different. I mean, like you can't even.
They're totally different there.
You can't denigrate politicians that are going through stuff. You can't talk about things that they're doing. You can't bring out corruption. Yeah, it's really stupid. They even have.
There's no way the Jeff and Bill show would be allowed in England.
No,
they
I would be in prison. I would be in prison, not you, my friend. I would be in prison. And then some people who listen to this show would cheer. That's okay, but maybe you can visit me.
I am intrigued by the turn that Barney's had and some other of our listeners from I'm going to call and fight Billy to now I'm friends with Billy.
I still think that's because of his therapy. I'm teasing Barney. I'm teasing. But here's the thing is, what do you think? Now we got a great text from Marion, Wyoming about the idea of being a horse trader at this point, that those people that are uncommittal, they haven't come out and said no, like Massey.
That's exactly what they're doing.
But the horse trading behind the scenes, I want this. I want this committee assignment, or I want this done, or I want you to co-sponsor my bill or something like that. And do you think Johnson will do enough of the horse trading to get himself across the line? What would be your impression being the Politico?
Yeah, I mean, that's the fine balance, right?
Yeah.
So if you're someone like Lauren Boebert, who said, now I'm willing to support Mike Johnson because Chip Roy is going to have a senior committee position, well, then there was some horse trading done there.
Yeah.
So how far can you push it to where, you get what you want, but if you push it too far, like if you're really good, you could become the outlier that's not willing to get behind Mike Johnson. Then Donald Trump steps in, starts hammering you. Elon Musk says, I'm going to primary you, all that stuff, right? You want to get something out of it, but you can't get so much or be so problematic in this vote that all of a sudden you've drawn the ire of Trump and Musk as a Republican. No.
Yeah. The other thing I'm questioning is
that's the balance.
They're looking at, Johnson not necessarily being as not conservative enough. There's always this push to get further and further right. On the political spectrum, he's pretty far right. I can't figure out anybody that is further right that could get that speakership. I don't think there's a way to get anybody more conservative, but we'll talk about that later.
We're only about 2 hours away. We'll continue to watch that. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking about this vacancy committee in Douglas County. Not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this right here is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Maybe instead of coffee, you should grab a morning delight, a little whiskey there, spice up that, Irish up your coffee a little bit, because the Surgeon General this morning calling for cancer warnings on alcohol. Dr. Vivek Murthy's report cites studies linking alcoholic beverages to at least 7 malignancies, including breast cancer. But to add warning labels, Congress would have to act. Would you support the same types of warning labels that are found on cigarette packages on your case of Coors Light? Love to hear from you all. We'll get into this and more. Plus, we're going to talk.
There's so many jokes that I wanted to make right there. I'm going to wait for those later. we'll bring those up later. That's for later. I'm going to figure out which ones are air appropriate. They'll do that in a minute.
And what would those warning labels look like?
Yes, exactly.
And did that actually change your mind on anything?
Yeah.
Especially when you were 16 and stealing your cigarettes. Were you reading the warning labels to
Yes.
determine whether or not you should do that?
Yes, exactly.
In a little bit, Jon Carson is going to join us. He's running for Senate District 30 vacancy. This is a big decision tomorrow down in Douglas County as to who's going to fulfill and finish Kevin Van Winkle's term. He's a state senator that's now a new county commissioner in Douglas County. We spoke with Kim Ransom. We spoke with Priscilla Rott, now Jon Carson. So for those informed voters out there, you're not going to want to miss that conversation. Then coming up a little bit later in the show, George Brauchler is going to join us to respond to loser Phil Weiser's announcement yesterday that he wants to become the governor of Colorado. Not going so well for Phil. He made his announcement, and then I called him a loser who drove Colorado into a crime ditch, and that tweet has gotten twice as much support as Phil's original announcement tweet. Not a good sign there, Phil Weiser. Not a good sign. So we'll talk about him. He did an interview on Channel 9 last night. We'll talk about that interview and whether or not you would vote for Phil Weiser. Please, God, don't. To become the governor of Colorado. Love to hear from you all. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971.
Jeff?
Or text us. Yeah.
You know, the problem with the idea of, not voting for Phil Weiser, you remember the number 2 choice in that survey, right? Jenna. I know. I know. Talk about a devil's choice. Crap. I can't vote for Phil Weiser. I have to vote for, well, crud. Yeah, it's time when you're going to have to pick none of the above. But
this is where I think Joe Neguse just sails right into it.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think so. Yeah, very intelligent. Let's see what happens.
And Phil Weiser got in early. He's the first big name to get in an effort to try to elbow everybody out. But please, Democrats and the big blob of independent voters in Colorado, the amorphous blob of independent voters, do not make Phil Weiser, Jenna Griswold, the Democrat nominee. We know the state is 15 points towards the Democrats.
However,
whoever wins that is likely going to win.
However, Jeff, I do think that if for whatever reason, if Phil Weiser does manage to come out of the primary and be the Democrat nominee, I think, just in the interest of unity, the Jeff and Bill show should send him a congratulation a gift, and it should be a small whiteboard and some dry erase markers so they can take it out on the road with him.
Come up with this program.
Yes, we can say here, congratulations.
To address crime.
Exactly. So you can outline all your programs when you're talking to people. We should send that to him if he wins the primary. Not if he gets the governor's office. I'm just talking, he can use that on the campaign trail, and maybe we could even put, from the Jeff and Bill show on the back or something. We can logo it or something. I'm just thinking, it's just outside the box thinking, because we're in the interest of unity. If he wins, we're happy for him to celebrate, and we want him to make sure he can outline all the programs efficiently as possible for all the voters he's trying to persuade. Yeah, right.
You're definitely going to want to hear from George Brauchler
yeah.
on this one. So George's going to be joining us a little bit, and then we're going to wrap up, as we always do on Fridays, with a little cowboy poetry. By the way, Jeff Hildebrandt has written a specific poem on the farewell ride of Jimmy Carter into the sunset. So we'll get that later in the show. So lots to cover, but first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning. Looking forward to that. 25 and cloudy in Denver. Expecting a high of 54 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families.
Well, that was nice. And then it went downhill from there. The boneheaded Allstate CEO with a dumb woke statement and a lecture last night before the Sugar Bowl.
We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
Overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. What? A terrorist mowed down innocent victims in the street in New Orleans and murdered 14 people, injured several others. Amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Give me a break. What the hell does that have to do with a terrorist murdering innocent people? Nothing. Maybe they should worry about this. Police Superintendent Kirkpatrick admits she didn't know that they had sidewalk barriers that may have saved lives.
What you see behind us is what we call hardening the target. So we have brought in heavy trucks. You will see when you go down Bourbon, you will see yellow, what we call archers, and they're along the sidewalk. And that would be to be preventive. If someone had, or if this particular terrorist went around up on the sidewalk, that's what that would do.
Chief, where did those archers come from?
Sorry?
Those yellow archers, where did they come from?
Actually, we have them. I didn't know about them, but we have them. And so we have been able now to put them out.
Okay.
Wow. Feel safe now? Unbelievable. Car sharing app Turo is facing new scrutiny after authorities revealed that the vehicles used in the New Orleans and Las Vegas explosions were both rented through the platform. So far, investigators believe that's a coincidence. NBC News' Antonia Hilton reports Turo is standing by its screening practices.
In a statement, a Turo spokesperson saying in part, "We do not believe that either renter involved in the Las Vegas and New Orleans attacks had a criminal background that would have identified them as a security threat. We remain committed to maintaining the highest standards in risk management."
However, a former ATF senior executive says Turo may provide a little more anonymity for car renters, allowing them to avoid airports and other retail locations that may be busy and have cameras. Turo gives customers the option of picking up a car from a remote location using an app to unlock it. The brother of the terrorists in New Orleans spoke last night.
We're all grieving about this. This wasn't the man I knew. This wasn't the father, the son that I knew. And that also, this isn't any representation of Al-Islam or Muslims or the Muslim community. Our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to those families, the victims of those families, and those who were there to witness it.
Shamsuddin Jabbar posted videos to social media pledging his support for the terrorist group ISIS just hours earlier, right before the attack. Neighbors of the man who killed himself and blew up the Cybertruck in Vegas, speaking in the Springs. Kenny Mack stunned to see FBI agents surround their townhomes Wednesday and then conduct a search warrant on Livelsberger's residence on Thursday.
That's a huge thing. I mean, your neighbor, a potential terrorist or suspect, that's pretty scary. I saw them from a newlywed couple, it seemed, from what I know. And then she's pregnant and then she has the baby and I see them walking the dog together and it just seems like the all-American life. And then reality hits and it's just.
And he shot himself before he blew up the car. The 119th U.S. Congress will be sworn in today. The 2-year term will get underway after the House members are sworn in. First, they'll have to elect a speaker, and it's not clear if Republican Mike Johnson has the votes needed to retain the position. The GOP controls both the House and the Senate, but Republicans hold just a slim majority in the House.
Jaden Harrison bringing back the kickoff. He brought 2 back for touchdowns last year when he played for the Thundering Herd of Marshall, and he has one for Notre Dame.
Notre Dame is moving on to the college football playoff semifinals. The Fighting Irish took a bite out of Georgia and the Dogs 23-10 in Thursday's Sugar Bowl to advance to take on Penn State in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. Texas takes on Ohio State in the other semi. Broncos have to beat the Chiefs on Sunday at Mile High in order to clinch a playoff spot. Carson Wentz will start at quarterback for the Chiefs. And guys, we're talking about Allstate. You were talking about commercials, and this is one of my favorite Allstate commercials, the Mayhem.
Yes. I'm your overly competitive brother. Check. Psych. And I'm about to steal this game from you, just like I stole Kelly Carter in high school, huh? You got no game. Dude, that's a foul. And now you're ready to settle a score. Game over. And if you don't have the right home insurance coverage, well, you can end up paying for all this yourself.
I love that commercial. I think they should do a commercial with the CEO, and he's just backing down that, and just dunking over him, elbowing him, pushing him to the ground, and basically, I love that because it reminds me of when I used to dominate my brother in the driveway. One of my brothers.
That was one of the
it.
funnier ones.
Right?
I like those commercials.
I do
like
too.
those,
I think they're great,
Yeah.
man. I think they're great. And then Allstate is just like, they didn't have to do it, as Jeff said, as he mentioned.
Totally unforced error.
I think that'd be cool. Put the CEO out there in the driveway and let Mayhem just beat the living crap out of him.
Now, I've got a question. I got a question for both of you. So Blake Wilson in the newsroom and Jeff Hunt in the studio. I got a question for you, and why I agree with you that this is an unforced error by the Allstate CEO. And this is the question that I've got. Okay, for both of you. How many people in your life, and how many people do you think either at the game or watching the game last night, if the message from the Allstate CEO didn't run, would go,
"Hey, what does the Allstate CEO think about what happened before the Sugar Bowl? I'm really mad that he hasn't said anything about this. Why hasn't he come out and assuaged all of our fears?"
What the hell?
That would be the one. I would say the answer to that. There's one nut job out there, and that would be, I'd say, 1 out of however million people watch.
Yeah. Nobody was concerned with the Allstate CEO. No one was concerned. We were concerned about the people that were injured, the people that lost family members. That's where our concern is focused on. Not the CEO of the Allstate. But he has to get out there and go,
"Look, I'm important. Now I'm going to talk to you."
Yeah, that's why it was unnecessary.
I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
I mean, you had a corporate spokesperson who just, he came up with the idea that this was a great moment to showcase our compassion. We're the prime sponsor of the Sugar Bowl.
There you go.
We've got to seize this moment to grow our brand as a compassionate brand. And it was a completely unforced error. In fact, I'm trying right now to get Bud Light to make an AI image, to get AI to make an image of him drinking a Bud Light beer.
Oh no! You know what you should do? What you need to do, Jeff, is you need to have him put the image of him on the Bud Light can. Just like the trans influencer. That's what you need to do. Here's Bud Light's next outreach program.
That would be good. No, that's a really good one. Or put his big ugly face on a dartboard or something. and have Mayhem just take him out with some. Just go the opposite. It's so ridiculous. All right. Thanks for letting me play that commercial. I love that. 23 in Glendale, 22 in Lone Tree, 25 in Denver. Jeff and Billy are back. It is Friday. Thank God. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Areas of fog, some of it dense to start the day, then becoming partly to mostly cloudy. Temperatures will be upper 40s and low 50s. Areas of fog may reform tonight, lows in the 20s. Mostly cloudy Saturday, maybe some fog in the morning. Colder, highs 30s and low 40s with snow showers by afternoon. Snow likely Saturday night into Sunday morning. We could pick up some light accumulations. Upper teens Saturday night, colder Sunday, highs low 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I typed into Gronk. Put the image of Allstate CEO Tom Wilson on a Bud Light can.
Yes.
And it put the can and his chin on the top of it.
Oh. That's not what you meant. Right. Not helping.
All right.
No, did you hear on an AI thing? Did you hear the story about the guy? I know we got a guest coming here. The guy who made a ton of waves he became an internet sensation because he fired his software development team in favor of artificial intelligence software. And he said, he bragged on air. This has got to be not on air, on social media, maybe 7 to 9 months ago, about how his company is now able to deliver code 100 times faster and 10 times cleaner than what human coders can do.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks ago, he put out an advertisement looking for human coders. Because he's realized that while AI is really good at simple code, it can't put together large, complex systems that have to integrate with each other. Also, he found out that the AI software developers are very, very bad when they encounter a problem no one has seen before because it has no reference point. Yep. And so now the guy's getting trolled on the internet. People are going, "Oh, really? Now you need the humans, huh, Mr. Big Shot."
60 Minutes did this, where they kind of pulled back all of the AI programming. Did a story on this, and it's literally, I'm not kidding you, people in Africa that sit in front of computers and tell the computer what an orange is, what an apple is, what a banana is.
Yeah,
like AI is not all that intelligent. It's impressive, but it needs human guidance. Yeah. Otherwise, it just kind of like it does what that image does.
Oh, yeah. Here's one of the problems.
Put it.
There are ads out there you can find online that AI companies want you to write short essays and things in your area of expertise for the artificial intelligence software to try to teach it some stuff. Guess how much they're paying? $15 an hour. So I'm just saying that if you're an expert in your field or you have some knowledge to impart to artificial intelligence, are you taking the $15 an hour writing job? No. The people that are taking the $15 an hour writing job are not the people you want teaching the AI. So, this is going to go well here in a couple of years. Yeah, this is going to be fun to watch.
Well, let's get to some real intelligence
let's do some real
here. It's John Carson joins us. John is seeking to serve the remainder of Kevin Van Winkle's term as state senator. This is Senate District 30. It's in Douglas County. And Saturday, tomorrow, they're going to be making a decision, the vacancy committee. Now, John Carson is up against Priscilla Ron and Kim Ransom, who you've heard on this show earlier this week. John, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, and Happy New Year.
You bet. You bet. Happy New Year to you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we got this vacancy committee process, the vote tomorrow. So I am in it.
Let's talk about it, John. Always good to have you on the program. Now, John, why are you better to serve the people of Senate District 30 than Kim Ransom or Priscilla Ron?
Well, I've got a proven track record of conservative results. You know, when I was president of the school board here in Douglas County, we transformed the whole district around parental choice. 26% of the students now can attend charter schools. We ended the teachers union contract, and we took the ACLU on all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We won that case and established some great precedents for school choice. So I'm a fighter. You know, we need a fighter in there right now. I'm going to fight to stop this hard left turn that our state is taking under Democratic leadership. And we've got to get in there. We've also got to have our own message of unified message of controlling. You know, there are going to be a lot of spending cuts that have to happen this year in the legislature. They've got about $1 billion, maybe close to $1 billion deficit. So I want to create a efficiency commissions for the state level, similar to what President Trump and Elon Musk are doing with the federal level. Go through all of these agencies, find the ways to redundancy. I think the governor might actually be interested in that because he's got a lot of heavy lifting to do along with us. But as a Republican, I'm going to fight hard to control spending, protect Tabor. We got to protect our tax refunds under Tabor. I want to see us in the long term phase out the state income tax as well. You know, 9 states now in the U.S. do not have a state income tax. I think Colorado should become the 10th. Take us a few years to get there, but we've been reducing that from 5% down to 4.25. It'll be this next year. I think we keep phasing that down, use the Tabor mechanism to do that as a mean to give the tax refunds back to the taxpayers. And also want to make sure we require localities to comply with federal immigration law. You know, that was the top issue in the commissioner's race this year, I learned, was illegal immigration in Douglas County and surrounding areas. People really want it to end. And I think we've got to get these localities, you know, complying with the law. It's ridiculous what Denver is doing. It's affecting all of us. So those are my big issues.
Talking with Jon Carson, he's seeking to fill the remaining term for Kevin Van Winkle, who's gone off to serve as Douglas County Commissioner. Now, John, Kim Ransom, who was on our show, said she's got years and years of experience down at the Colorado State Capitol. She's going to be able to just jump right in here and get to work. Your experience on the school board is definitely civic leadership, but a little different than being a lawmaker. How do you respond to Kim Ransom, who says that she's got years of experience? She's going to be able to just jump right in and get lawmaking done.
Yeah, well, actually, after law school, when I graduated, I went to D.C. and worked over a decade there on Capitol Hill. I worked for U.S. Senator Wayne Allard, our conservative senator from Colorado, among others. I've worked in the Senate. I've worked in the House. I've written bills. I've managed bills on the floor. It's at the federal level, but it's, of course, very similar to the state legislature. I really have a lot of expertise in the legislative process. I'm an attorney. I know how to digest all of these pieces of legislation. I have no doubt that I can jump right in there, hit the ground running. The other 11 Republican senators obviously will be helping whoever gets in there because it will be right before the session begins. But I'm not concerned at all about not having legislative experience. I've also been on the CU Board of Regents. I've got experience in a number of legislative and deliberative bodies. So I know how committees work. I know how the floor votes work. And I'll fit right in.
Now, Jon Carson seeking to fill the remaining part of Kevin Van Winkle's Senate term. There's a vacancy vote on Saturday. John, you're going to, if you get the vacancy vote and you become a state senator, you're going to deal with Jared Polis as governor, James Coleman as president of the Senate, and then a Democrat House that nearly is controlled by Democrats up to a supermajority. This is a progressive state. Republicans are losing statewide by 15 points. So tell us how you plan to balance both standing firm for what you believe works, conservative principles, limiting immigration, protecting Tabor, attacking our deficit, all that stuff, while living in a state that is blue, blue, blue. How do you protect values, but then also work with those on the other side with Democrats? Your thoughts, Jon Carson?
Yeah, well, the first thing we got to do is get this party united. My top priority and my message tomorrow is we got to stop all this internal warfare. You know, our party registration in Colorado has gone just in the last decade from 32% of the registered voters to 23% of the registered voters. We're declining fast. We cannot afford this kind of division. We need to get united as a party. We agree on the issues. We need to focus outward, not inward. Use the style of President Trump, where he communicates with everybody, working Coloradans, goes on the Joe Rogan podcast for 3 hours, works a shift at McDonald's, talk to ordinary working Coloradans, talk to, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated. We've got to talk to everybody with our message of limited government and low taxes. And, I tell folks, remember, Ronald Reagan was a Democrat for much of his career, and Donald Trump was a Democrat for much of his career. So I think we just need to broaden our audience quite a bit as the Republican Party in this state. We got to fight the leftward drift, these extreme proposals that are going to come down. Fortunately, in the state Senate, there are some reasonable Democrats we can work with. They stopped a lot of bad extreme proposals last year, and I would be focusing on this as well. But it's equally important that we have our own Republican agenda for people to see, what we believe in, what we offer the voters.
John Carson, Senate District 30 vacancy candidate, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to explore that idea of the disagreement inside of the GOP in Colorado for a while. Do you think, in your opinion, that the GOP can come together? And what I'm looking at is, you cited very accurately the erosion in party membership over the previous decade here in Colorado. We know there are a number of organizations that turn around and call people rhinos. We've got a Rhino Watch website here in Colorado that takes existing Republicans and then says now they are Republicans in name only. We've seen it on a national level. What I'm concerned about is that both the Colorado GOP and the GOP nationally tends to want to shrink the tent rather than make the tent larger. You've just outlined, in order to get things done, you're going to have to expand the tent. How do we go about expanding the tent when there are a whole bunch of people that are inside that tent that don't want anybody else in and want to throw a number of people inside the tent out? How do we get there?
Yeah, well, what you've outlined is right on target, Bill, and that's the problem. We've got to get our own house in order. We've got to have people sit down, understand all this name calling. This is not helpful at all. We've got bigger, problems to deal with. We've got a state that we believe is moving in the wrong direction, and we've got a new direction of communication. I think the key is communication on our message. As I said, the way President Trump gets out there and just talks to everyday working Americans about issues. He doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, unaffiliated. We got to get out there and sell our message. That's what we need to be focused on. Stop the inward focus and focus outward. We have no choice. If we don't do it, we're just going to continue to decline into irrelevance in this state. And I think this election, we picked up we got lucky in a couple of seats. I think one of those state legislative districts we won by six votes. Those will have to be defended. We've got a high mountain to climb here, a big fight ahead of us, and that's what we need to focus on, not this internal fighting, feuding, division about party issues and loyalties and calling people rhinos and other things.
Talking with John Carson. Now, John, in light of that, we've asked everybody this question. One of the big decisions for Republicans coming up in the next few months is who's going to be the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. Would you support Dave Williams taking on a second term as chairman of the GOP?
Well, I think the party needs new direction. I'm not going to comment. My message tomorrow is about unity. I'm not going to weigh into that. I haven't been involved in that. If I'm elected, obviously, I'll have a vote in that down the road. But I'm really going to focus at this point on unity. I will say this, that the big concern I have, you had Gabe Evans on the show a couple of days ago. I was listening, and if what he said was accurate, that he got no help at all from the state party and other candidates. If that's accurate, I mean, clearly that's not acceptable, and that's got to change. And so that's my, that'll be my test when I see who the candidates are going to be. We don't know who's going to be running, but when I see who those candidates will be, my test will be how much are you going to fulfill what I believe is your principal responsibility to get Republicans elected at all levels of government in this state. That's the role of the party.
Talking with Jon Carson. Now, John, I got a text message here from a supporter who said, you are a rock solid conservative, but Kim is her first choice. What would you say to try to change her mind as to why you would you'd be better than Kim Ransom?
Well, I think I've got the message of unity, pulling the party together. I think we've got to do a lot more communicating and, working to get our issues out there and understood by the voters. I think I'm a good communicator. I'm used to the challenges in leadership positions on the school board as president, CU region, my experience in the legislative process. So I think I would be, a great fit to help unify this party and start winning seats back. We got to get our backpacks on and start climbing up that mountain. And we're going to have talented, unified people to do that.
Right. Jon Carson, the vote happens tomorrow. When does that take place? Where is it? And who's involved with deciding this vacancy committee?
Yeah, so it is open to the public. It's at South Ridge Recreation Center in Highlands Ranch at 1 p.m. It starts. The way these vacancy committees work, basically all the precinct committee people, district captains, elected Republicans, party officers who live in Senate District 30, which is the northern third of Douglas County, they can vote. It's about 160 eligible voters, a little bit over that. We'll see who. I know a number of people are still on vacation. It's an awkward time to be doing this, but hopefully we'll get good attendance. And I think the most important thing here, Jeff, is we have a contest. So many times these vacancies are coronations, and we've got a good, solid contest we're offering to people for the vacancy committee, and the voters deserve that. They deserve a good choice.
Jon Carson, really appreciate your time. We'll be watching this tomorrow. We'll have the news update on Monday once all the votes come through. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show today.
Yes, thank you, and Happy New Year.
You bet. Thanks, Jeff and Bill. Happy New Year. Take care.
So Jon Carson, another text message. It's a tough decision for sure. I think he'll do a wonderful job. Or he did a wonderful job on the show, and your questions were spot on. Well, thank you. Text messenger.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, it's going to be a tough choice for those in the GOP because, again, I'm not a member of either party, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I enjoy that so much. It is a difficult one because I think you've got three very strong candidates, and it's going to come down to some personal preference and what you like and where you think that candidate is going to be best placed to move things forward. This is going to be a tough choice. Oftentimes, sitting on the sidelines, I can kind of look at some of the GOP candidates and say, oh, I like that person a lot better than the others. But these are three solid candidates. I don't think there's a bad choice here, which is good. It's good for the GOP.
I really don't. I don't have a particular horse myself in all these. All three are great. Priscilla, Ron, Kim Ransom, Jon Carson. If I was going to horse race it, though,
who do
I think likely carries it?
Yeah.
Kim Ransom. I think she likely carries it because she's been a lawmaker in the district for a long time. I think she served all 4 House terms. So you're looking at 8 years there that people have seen her in a leadership role like that. I think she's done a very good job in that position. Jon Carson, also a very well-known name in Douglas County. So I think he's probably in second. And then Priscilla Ron, I think the challenge Priscilla's had is that her leadership hasn't quite been at that level. So you have the vice chair of the Colorado Republican Party and you have planning commissioner experience, but not quite elected official.
Can I make
experience,
this? Can I make this
right?
and twist this a little bit weird? Because that's kind of what I do. Okay, now what do we do with the idea of so Ms. Ransom has the largest legislative experience on the resume.
Yep.
But how does that square with the choice of the GOP for Donald Trump? Someone that was chosen specifically because they were not an insider. They hadn't played they hadn't played the game and they were there to disrupt. Does that type of a theory, does that feeling carry over into the Colorado GOP? And does the actual legislative experience become a negative because you're looking for someone that may be a disruptor for the liberals here in the state? Could the lack of experience be a plus?
It could, but also Donald Trump's a total unicorn. And you're going to get a bunch of
Agreed.
lawmakers that want to be like Donald Trump. And will try to act like him out.
Yeah.
But he's 1 in a trillion.
So
no
others have
one's-
tried. You're right. Others have tried already, and it doesn't work. You're right.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
always work. So, yeah, we could. And I think in that case, they might go for John Carson or Priscilla Ron. And then the other thing you have to factor into this is how the people whose candidate doesn't make the first few rounds or
yeah,
doesn't
where
do
do
well
they
in the first
go?
few rounds, where do they go? Because that was Greg Lopez's brilliant move.
Yeah.
Right. If you
Smartest
remember
politician
that,
in Colorado, smartest one.
If you remember that night, he was like 7th during the first
Yeah.
2 rounds of voting. And then as the candidates dropped out, they didn't want to hand it to one of their primary opponents. So they went for the safe Greg Lopez vote. And by and large, by the end of the night, he ended up winning. It was Lincoln's strategy in his first race as well, where he went to the convention and he's just like, look, I'm nobody's first choice, but I'm very happy to be everybody's second choice.
Yep.
And that got him the nomination to become the president of the United States. So
And if
there's
I
a strategy there.
If I was John or Priscilla, I would almost think about doing that as well.
Yeah,
Positioning
right.
yourself as the outsider, the potential disruptor, but then also everybody's favorite second choice. It's a good
Negotiate a deal. So if
Yeah.
Kim Ransom is the lead horse, right, and you're John or Priscilla, you go, okay, if one of us ends up in third, would you be willing to help endorse me? I'll always remember it. Wink,
Yeah.
wink. You know, next time you need a favor, I'll be here for
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
That's kind of how that stuff works.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we'll see. I mean, who do you think, if you're in Douglas County, who do you think's got the lead on this? Let's vote tomorrow to fill Kevin Van Winkle's open Senate seat as Kevin now heads to the county commissioner seat in Douglas County. So we'd love to hear from you. Speaking of great guys out there like John Carson, Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan. I've known him for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. He's right there with us on the values. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case is going to say a lot about you to everybody involved in the case. That means opposing lawyers, opposing perpetrators, possibly insurance companies, right? And if you hire somebody because you saw them on a bus billboard go by, you're probably not getting somebody that really shares your values or is communicating the right message. Listen to this. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian and has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Well, that's all good. How about what's his track record in the courtroom? Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. You might be saying to yourself, I'm not sure I can afford them. Well, rest assured, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's his phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is trying to avoid the same fate that Kevin McCarthy suffered a couple of years ago when he was ousted from the top spot in the House after a drawn-out fight for the gavel. A group that appears to be growing is threatening to derail Johnson's bid in today's vote over his past actions, even though Johnson has received backing from President Donald Trump. With Republicans holding a paper-thin majority in the House, just 2 defectors could block Johnson from holding on to the gavel for the next 2 years. Thomas Massey being one of them, rallying against the speaker on social media and echoing Rand Paul in reminding people that Johnson cast the deciding vote to allow FISA to search American records without a warrant and to send $60 billion to Ukraine. The vote is set to happen at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. President Joe Biden is getting ready to issue a decree permanently banning new offshore oil and gas development in some U.S. coastal waters, locking in difficult-to-revoke protections for sensitive marine areas during his final weeks in the White House. Biden is set to issue the executive order banning the sale of new drilling rights in portions of the country's outer continental shelf, according to people familiar with the effort who asked not to be named because the decision isn't public. The move is sure to complicate President Donald Trump's plan for more domestic energy production.
In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We got some breaking news coming in here. Congressman Bob Good saying he will not support Mike Johnson for Speaker.
Oh, that's not good. See what I did there? I'm an idiot. I am such an idiot.
So there's only one vote that he doesn't, that he can sacrifice. Mike Johnson can sacrifice in this. And Thomas Massey said he's not voting for him. So now that's two.
That's
so
two.
We do not have a speaker.
No. And that means gridlock. And again, we're supposed to certify by Monday. It's ceremonial, mostly. But the big question is
the revenge of Bob Good?
Maybe. And that's
seriously, remember? Because didn't Trump primary him?
I think so, maybe. That could be. And that this could be somewhat of a lesson that there are some members of Congress that are in such safe districts. Trump doesn't have sway over him. The sway of Elon's promise of primary, everybody may not have as much of a pull as they think, because some of these representatives are in very, very safe districts. So it really won't matter. That's interesting. So now we are Now, the other part is who's the other choice, though? That's the weird part is I can't figure out who you'd choose that could get across the line at this point.
But help me understand this. So
yeah,
Trump-backed challenger beats Bob Good. So if Bob Good lost the primary, how's he congressman right now?
I don't know.
I'm
I'd have to check and
confused
look.
by this.
I'd have to look. I don't know.
Because he wouldn't be able to vote if I don't know.
Yeah, he wouldn't be a
Maybe he's
member at
not
that
in?
point. But I don't know. I have to look.
Is this just a post of a guy that's no longer in Congress?
Oh, maybe that's it. He's
Maybe
just
that's it.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look. I don't know. Yeah,
that's why I got confused. So this wouldn't matter then.
no, it wouldn't if he's not in. Yeah,
Yep, that's right, sweetie. You have no vote. You lost your seat.
yeah, that wouldn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to look.
So then
we'll find
Mike Johnson could be the speaker.
Yeah, he could
All
be
right.
still. But or does good have
Maybe
any
Congressman
sway at
Bob
all?
Good should take congressman off of his.
Well, maybe until they swear in the new one, he's
description, I
not.
feel
Or
like an idiot.
They should, yeah, but today's the first. I don't know. We'll have to find out. We will find out.
Yeah, so it sounds like Mike Johnson could still be good, and he just got Bob Good got primaried and he's out, and so he's no longer a congressman, so he will not be voting for Mike Johnson. All right. Well, I feel like an idiot.
Nah, no worries. Let's see what happens. Tell you what, let's get a palate cleanser. We'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, sounds good. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Is Bob Good still in Congress? We'll figure it out.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. David, California. Good morning, David.
Hey, morning.
Oh, morning. Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
You know, the issue about the Speaker of the House, if you were serious about protecting America, you wouldn't appoint an ass kisser. You know, you wouldn't appoint a guy that's just saying, oh, well, he's what he wants. That's what I'm going to give him. I'll work as hard as I can for that guy. I mean, that is a joke. Do you think Rocky Flats is going to get cleaned up under Johnson? And I'll give you another example that's even creepier. What do you think is more valuable, gold or Bitcoin?
Me,
That's an
personally,
interesting one.
definitely gold.
Yeah, I'd take gold too because intrinsic value. But what about you,
Sure.
David?
So Donald Trump, right now, 2-3 days ago, proposed an idea that he wants to make a strategic Bitcoin reserve and that he wants to use the gold of America to buy Bitcoin and pay off the national debt with Bitcoin. Now, what happens if the electricity goes up?
I haven't heard that at all.
Yeah, I'd heard
Oh,
that.
yeah,
floated.
look it
Yeah.
up. Strategic Bitcoin reserve. Just look it up. This con artist, and you're talking about putting in Johnson. The guy is an ass kisser. He's got no spine, and he would allow a thing as stupid as that.
Now, David, I got to push back on you a little bit because what people that are supportive of the president will say is that Donald Trump has put together a winning agenda and he won big in this upcoming election. Therefore, he's the leader of the party and the people should get behind him and support his vision.
Well, that if he wants to defy physics, he wants to defy science and just get what he wants, that's stupid. You're talking about penthouse boy. This guy has lived in a penthouse all of his life, and do you think he knows anything about Western Kansas? Do you think he knows anything about what it's like to live in Montana or live on a mountain? He knows nothing, and he's going to tell us to go rake the forests. You know, and then when it makes it even worse is all of these people that he wants to appoint. You're talking about Johnson is going to try to fast track a bunch of people that can be blackmailed. You start going through the list of thousands of people that Trump wants to appoint to manage our property. This is not Donald Trump's property. This is America. This is our property. We, the people, own it. And to appoint people that can be blackmailed and to mismanage it, to take apart our rules.
Who's been blackmailed? Who's blackmailed?
Start naming them. Bill, Gates, he wanted to make as the Attorney General. You take Bobby Kennedy or RFK. You take.
How about Chris Wright from Colorado? I don't think he's been blackmailed.
I'm not familiar with him, but every one of these figures that he's putting in can be blackmailed. Believe me. And the idea that we, the people, need independent thought to be able to manage our property instead of taking orders from the boss.
Now,
Boss
David,
man,
I'm
one thing
confused
that I want to
as to
mention.
what property is being managed.
Now here,
here.
what I want to do, that David, I want to go back to the idea of the cryptocurrency for a second. And Donald Trump talking about creating a cryptocurrency reserve. One of the things that I don't think he really understands the fundamental market pressures and how wild the values vary. The other part that's going to be difficult is what cryptocurrency does he buy? I know Bitcoin is kind of what we use, but Bitcoin is very valuable. But the issue is, you look at Elon likes Dogecoin, and he likes the one that he just changed his name to, but those are mostly worthless. We wouldn't want to invest and create a strategic reserve of that.
And I appreciate
thanks for
the
the call,
fact that,
David. We gotta
thanks,
roll on.
David.
Yeah.
David's trying to bring up the fact that these people can be manipulated. But look, all of Joe Biden's appointees went through without a single Democrat challenging them. Come on. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up and heading to work in the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. We've got a whole hour planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, George Brauchler joins us, the new district attorney from the 23rd Judicial District here in Colorado. I asked him to come on and maybe provide some commentary and analysis on Phil Weiser's announcement yesterday. Phil Weiser is the current attorney general who now wants to become Colorado's next governor. He announced his candidacy yesterday for governor, and it's about as boring as you can imagine because he's a professor. And I'm going to ask George what he thinks about Phil Weiser's leadership as attorney general and his prospects of becoming the next governor. So not going to want to miss that conversation. And then we're going to hear from Jeff Hildebrandt afterwards. He's our 710 KNUS Poet Laureate. And we always like to wrap up the show on our Fridays with a little cowboy poetry. He's written a new one specifically in light of President Jimmy Carter's death. So not going to want to miss that as well. So great hour coming up. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. And Jeff, 29 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 54 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I don't make deals with anyone. There's no quid pro quo here. I don't do anything in exchange for a vote other than commit to make this institution work as effectively and efficiently as possible.
The House voting for a new speaker today. Current Speaker Mike Johnson spoke to reporters walking through the Capitol building. It comes as some Republicans believe Johnson doesn't have the needed votes to remain in the role. Earlier this week, Texas Republican Chip Roy said that he didn't think Johnson had the votes at the time and added the party needs to be united. Some Republicans grew frustrated with Johnson late last year as Congress worked to avoid a government shutdown. President-elect Trump has endorsed Johnson to remain as Speaker.
No, I haven't. No, I met with him yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. We had a great visit. But I think that I think this is going to turn out well tomorrow, and we'll stay unified and we'll get all this done.
Once again, that happening this morning. The FBI says there is no link so far between the attack on Bourbon Street and the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside Las Vegas. Before that event, up to 14 people were killed and dozens more injured when that truck plowed through a crowd in the early hours of the new year in New Orleans. The suspect in that attack was identified as a U.S.-born citizen and also an Army veteran. The FBI says agents have not made any connections between the two events. But then the FBI lead in New Orleans said it wasn't a terrorist attack 2 days ago. Who knows? Neighbors of the man who shot himself before blowing up his rented Cybertruck know that it doesn't feel good when you have the FBI surrounding your townhomes in Colorado Springs.
That's a huge thing. I mean, your neighbor, a potential terrorist or suspect, that's pretty scary. I saw them from a newlywed couple, it seemed, from what I know. And then she's pregnant and then she has the baby and I see them walking the dog together. And it just seems like the all-American life. And then reality hits and it's just crazy.
The Sugar Bowl was postponed until last night, and then the overpaid clueless suit, the clown show CEO, felt the need to lecture college football fans before the game. His name is Tom Wilson.
Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
Oh, Tom, you're so 2020. By the way, the rental company Turo says they did their due diligence with both the New Orleans and the Vegas truck renters.
In a statement, a Turo spokesperson saying in part, "We do not believe that either renter involved in the Las Vegas and New Orleans attacks had a criminal background that would have identified them as a security threat. We remain committed to maintaining the highest standards in risk management."
So after all this, last night, the game did kick off the Sugar Bowl.
Jaden Harrison bringing back the kickoff. He brought 2 back for touchdowns last year when he played for the Thundering Herd of Marshall, and he has one for Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame advancing to the college football playoff semifinals. The Fighting Irish beat Georgia 23-10. And they will advance to take on Penn State in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. Texas takes on Ohio State in the other semi. Broncos this weekend on Sunday, they play host to the Chiefs. They have to beat Kansas City in order to clinch a playoff spot. Carson Wentz will start at quarterback for the Chiefs as they rest up and get Patrick Mahomes ready for the playoffs. 27 in Brighton, 26 in Littleton, 29 in Denver. Jeff and Billy with the final hour of the week. Just ahead, TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Areas of fog, some of it dense to start the day, then becoming partly to mostly cloudy. Temperatures will be upper 40s and low 50s. Areas of fog may reform tonight, lows in the 20s. Mostly cloudy Saturday, maybe some fog in the morning. Colder, highs 30s and low 40s with snow showers by afternoon. Snow likely Saturday night into Sunday morning. We could pick up some light accumulations. Upper teens Saturday night, colder Sunday, highs low 30s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So if you missed the big announcement yesterday, Phil Weiser declared his candidacy for governor. Phil is our current attorney general. Yesterday, he was asked on Channel 9, Colorado has a serious crime problem. Phil, what are you going to do about it? Phil said, well, as the chief law enforcement officer, I've got some plans. No, seriously, that's actually what he said. He's got a plan to deal with recidivism because that's where he thinks crime is coming from.
That's interesting because if only there was something that he could do now, if only he had some power, if only he was placed in a higher office here in Colorado where he could affect this kind of a change. If only he was given a podium that was large enough and could speak to all of Colorado as far as outlining his plans to no, he was more concerned about grocery stores. That's right.
Yes, that's exactly right. And when I contrast it with this press conference that George Brauchler did a few weeks ago, where he was announcing the opening of the new district attorney's office in Judicial District 23, it was night and day. I mean, George is up there going, I have drawn a map for the criminals to avoid our district because we are going to put you in jail, you jerks. I mean, it was
George's press conference was pretty much like, try me.
Right. So joining us to give us some perspective on Phil Weiser is a man who knows him quite well, George Brauchler.
Morning.
George,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Listening to the show today, I think it's great. I told Billy off air, the one concerning thing, and it's a little bit related to crime, is that Luigi murderer guy, the CEO guy, that when Barney called in and was like, that CEO was making a ton of money and denying, I'm like, oh man, this is pervasive everywhere. I mean, this is across the political spectrum that people are, really tired of the health insurance industry. I know that's not why you asked me, but I've been listening to the show. I love it. You guys are doing great. Can I say one thing as a disclaimer? And it feels like I have to do this every time I talk about Phil is I lost to Phil Weiser for Attorney General in 2018. I mean, if I don't say that, people start texting in or hitting me on social media like, you're just saying that because you lost. And it's like, no, I did lose. Undeniably, I lost to that guy by the narrowest margin of anyone that won a statewide race. But anyway, but I would say these things anyway, because this is a guy who has huge blemishes that he has really gotten a pass on. And the media kind of just walks by like, nah, not that big a deal. Let's talk about something else.
Well, let's talk about those blemishes. He wants to take on the chief executive role of the state of Colorado. What do you think of his track record as Attorney General?
Unremarkable. I mean, if it's remarkable at all, it's for the things he's chosen to focus on, but equally the things that he has chosen not to. And I think it comes down to this. I've tried to figure out who Phil is over the years. And he's a nice guy. He's an affable guy. And let's not fool ourselves. He is a legitimate major candidate who could be the governor of the state of Colorado. No matter what we think about his performance in this state of Colorado, he could win. And he's going to be a formidable candidate because his superpower is relationships and fundraising. This dude will outraise probably anybody except a Jared Polis. The question is, will that be enough in a party that's as extreme as his is? But the other thing to know about Phil, this is my perception of him, is he is feckless. He's not moored to any set of principles or values. And there's a couple things I'd point to. One, Billy and Jeff and me, I think, we were probably harder on terrorist-loving Timmy Hernandez than Phil was. And Hernandez was celebrating the butchering and murdering of Jews in Israel. Now, Phil is a big-time wear his faith on his sleeve guy, and I don't say that as a negative, as a pejorative. I think that's fantastic. But he was crickets when something like that happened. And the only explanation for it isn't, hey, I take sides with the Palestinians, or boy, I think those Israelis are really too aggressive on the West Bank stuff. It's because he was afraid of that part of his party that has the loudest microphone. And that just makes him weak. When you look at the fentanyl debate that took place, and there was a whole bunch of crazy ass Democrats out there who were like, let's make possession of fentanyl the same thing as like speeding or something like that. You remember when they wanted to decriminalize it?
Yep.
This guy was mum's the word. He was absolutely silent and absent on that issue. When his party said, let's rearm convicted felons by the tens of thousands, including drug dealers and car thieves, Phil got on board. I mean, that's even aside from the ridiculous comment about, hey, if you steal 3 or 4 cars in a 3-month period, you keep them in jail after that, because you get the sense that they may be committing more crimes. I mean, usually you get that. Yeah, you usually get that sense after the first one, but let's give him 3 or 4. But I'm just saying, this is a guy who is, one, I think, politically deaf, but he acts out of fear. Like, what's the courageous position that he has taken since he was Attorney General?
Well, let's talk about his leadership as Colorado's chief law enforcement officer. By the way, we're talking with George Brauchler, district attorney for Judicial District 23. Phil served in that role as chief law enforcement officer. And one of the number one issues that people are concerned about in Colorado is crime, addressing violent crime. And when asked last night by Kyle Clark on this, he goes, well, I've got plans to deal with recidivism. There's always a plan. There's always a program that he seems to want to build that's going to address the root cause. But he doesn't want to seem to take on the actual problem itself, which is crime. How did he do as Attorney General addressing crime in this state?
Well, I think the track record speaks for itself. I mean, violent crime has been up. We're number 8 in America for violent crime, number 4 for property crime. We've dropped down a few spaces after being the number 1 state for motor vehicle theft. But, this, I'm going to tackle the recidivism piece of this, accepts 2 things that he wants to just, I guess, walk by as reality. And that is, well, crimes are just going to continue to happen. Not much we can do about that. And the punishment for them ought to be de minimis. We ought to focus on the rehabilitation part of it as a way to end retribution. I'm a big rehab guy, too. In fact, I'm a big redemption guy. Any Christian is a redemption person. But as you and I know, separate from faith, there can be no redemption without accountability. And he is absent on accountability for criminals. And that's why it's easy to talk about rehabilitation. That's why it's easy to talk about, let's try to end recidivism. I don't want to end recidivism. I want to stop people from reoffending by arresting the bad guys and keeping them in jail. Because guess who's not stealing cars? Dudes in a cell, right? We're in the behavior modification game, and he sucks at it. And one other thing, and this is a double-edged sword for me. Dude keeps saying he's the chief law enforcement officer of the state, and for that, he should get to wear the crime rate that we have now. But the truth is, he is not the chief law enforcement officer of the state. And that's not me saying it. That's our appellate courts have pushed back on that every time it's been offered. He is the chief legal officer of the state because he, about 99% of what he does is, try to shut down mergers and all that other stuff. The other thing I would say that makes him incredibly partisan is he loved to brag about suing the Trump administration for everything. And there were times where he was right, but he would sue the Trump administration for every decision. My guess is if someone were to Cora request that office and say, please provide us evidence of any lawsuit you ever filed in 4 years against the Biden administration, it'd be zero, not a single one. And that just tells you that this guy's not only feckless, he's hyper partisan.
Talking with George Brauchler, District Attorney for Judicial District 23. So he's likely to be in a competitive primary because it's the top statewide job you can have without being a U.S. Senator in Colorado. So early polls have shown Jenna Griswold may do well in the Democrat primary, Joe Neguse. You've gone head to head with Phil Weiser before, and you brought this up a little bit before. He's good at fundraising. He's good at running a campaign. How do you handicap him in this race? Where does he look compared to maybe a Joe Neguse, a Jenna Griswold, maybe somebody else from the legislature that wants to seek this office?
His Achilles heel comes in the color of his skin and his gender, because this is not a party that typically is pro-white guy, although we do have a white guy as governor and as mayor of Denver. But that's a problem for him. He's also human chalk. I mean, I've debated this guy a bunch of times, and every time I've done it, not a single person, Dems included, have ever come up, as far as I know, and said, you smoked him, to Phil. If you watch that interview with Kyle Clark, he is just lukewarm milquetoast. I mean, there's just no fire there. And he doesn't bring anything special to the table. Now, Jenna, before this latest password debacle, I would have said, has a great shot at pulling this off. But honestly, if Joe Neguse jumps in this race, he doesn't just win the nomination, he wins governor. That's just how I see it.
That's my sense, too, that at least in the Democrat primary, he's got a good shot. Do you get a sense, though, that things might be turning in Colorado? We might not be able to get across a 15-point deficit that currently exists. But do you see that gap starting to close at all between Republicans and Democrats in the state? Do you think people are getting fed up with progressive leadership?
I do. I do see some shoots of green. I think the other thing that we ought to look to as a huge plus is Jared Polis is gone. Right. I mean, let's be honest, that bloodletting in 2018 where Phil beat me and we lost all those statewide races, that had nothing to do with them. It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with a near billionaire creating his own infrastructure, his own get out the vote, door knocking thing that beat to death anything the Republicans or Democrats put out there. And a rising tide raises all boats. And so 2 election cycles in a row, that guy has drug everybody else with him. Well, he's gone now. Right? Like he's not going to be spending his jillions to help Phil or Jenna or Neguse do this thing. So I think right there, that gives the Republicans a much better shot. And I also think that the way the state is going, you can walk by as many needles and bums and Tren de Agua apartment complexes as you want. But at some point, it becomes that subconscious narrative that something is wrong with Colorado and we need a change. That's going to do as much good as anything else.
George, do you think, though, that Jared Polis could still be a kingmaker? I mean, he's not moving out of Colorado.
No.
He may run for president, but I don't think that's going to translate. Democrats don't tend to do well nationally from Colorado. So do you think he's going to stick around and just pick who he wants to be the next elected official?
No, I don't think he carries that kind of sway with his own party. He's not beloved by the Democrats. He is loved, air quotes here, because he's in power, because he wins, because he drags people across the goal line. But remember, he wasn't anybody's favorite running for the nomination. It was Kerry Kennedy that won the assembly. He didn't even go through the dang assembly. He's a guy that had to buy his way onto the state school board. He is not a beloved Democrat. He's just the guy that won. And when he's gone, I think things change. But candidly, guys, I don't think it's overnight. I think we have a puncher's chance at best now. But I think a cycle from now, when we're not midterm, second term Trump, because that's another thing that's going to be a drag on us, right? Midterm, second term Trump, this state has shown its willingness to hate that guy and everyone who's in his party. A term from now, I think we have a real shot.
George Brauchler, DA for Judicial District 23, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to talk a little bit about where you're going with that one. We did see the Colorado GOP make some inroads during the previous election cycle. Is that a nice headwind, or is it a tailwind for the possible Democrat and also Republican nominee? And also, let's talk a little bit more about the challenges inside of that midterm election, because we know that nationally in the midterms, normally it's a pushback against the current administration.
Yep,
so
that's right.
What I'm looking at is, could some of the tailwinds that the Colorado GOP have right now, given the advancement of some national and local offices that they've reached, does that change? Does it become a headwind going into the midterm cycle? And is all that momentum possibly lost? What's your opinion?
I do. I think that's an insurmountable hurdle for us here in Colorado, not nationally, just right now with the structure of Colorado that we have and the demographic turnout. I think that second term, midterm Trump is going to be ugly for Republicans. But whatever tailwind we have, and you guys covered this either earlier in the week or late last week, I can't remember, we're going to do it to ourselves, right? We have a party that is now invested in offering amendments to the rules as to who can do what and vote in this and withdraw from that. We're going to try to attack and kill all of the Republicans like Gabe Evans, who successfully navigated against the state party's endorsement to win, so that we can hamstring all of those successful candidates and try to create a different batch of people to run. It's like, are we winning with this team? We are. What should we do? Let's kill the team. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. We're not offering a single amendment that would have won us one extra race, but would have cost us a bunch more. So independent of that second term, midterm thing, I think we're determined to kill ourselves as Republicans in the state.
George Brauchler, District Attorney, Judicial District 23. George, with Phil Weiser, if you were going to consult how best to challenge him, what are the top three direct things that you would recommend a primary opponent or a general election attack with regards to Phil Weiser?
I think you take him at his word, even though he's wrong, that he's the chief law enforcement officer of the state, and you beat him to death with all the things that he has done and not done in the legislature. Here's where Phil coming out early helps him, is he wants this conversation to turn into an attack on him now. Because we're going to spend the next 2 years of his second term running for governor, just like we spent the last two. Now it's official. But this is his goal, I think, is to, one, try to run off other people, scoop up a bunch of money, but three, take all of those slings and arrows right now so that a year from now, they're no longer part of the conversation. He's already had them addressed. They're tired news. They've been addressed. But I would beat him to death with the criminal stuff. And I would also look to all the things where he just has said nothing. Like, how does he stand up in a synagogue anywhere and talk about how I will fight for you and your faith? I really didn't have anything to say about Timmy Hernandez when they were dancing on the graves of the dead Jews in Israel, but I will fight for you. I mean, this guy is hollowed out. And also, even though debates don't win anything, I would debate this guy every single day. Joe Neguse has buckets of charisma. This guy, like I said, is human chalk.
George Brauchler, the DA for Judicial District 23, joining us live. I also think you were very good when you're on the show here about outlining some of the questionable choices that Weiser made inside of his prosecutions. And what I'm pointing to are bringing in all those out-of-staters that didn't have any experience, paying for them, bringing them in, and then losing the cases. If I'm running against him, I want to ask, why didn't you have anybody on your staff that had the ability to go in there and you felt confident in putting together, to prosecute these cases. What does that mean about your ability to put together a staff? And then when you chose the outside hired gun, you lose. What does it mean about the second level of your decision-making choices here? I'd go after that as well. What do you think? And George is quiet. I think I lost him.
I lost George.
What happened? Oh, yep, there it goes. Blong. Yes.
We'll get him. And the other question I have, and if we get George back, is this. Like, how really important, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm open to criticism on this, and from the callers, is fighting the Kroger-Albertsons merger. I'm kind of like, in my life, I guess I don't want to pay more for groceries. I'm not sure that would have required me to pay more for groceries. But on my list of top 1,000 or 2,000 things that I want the government to be dealing with, a supermarket merger is not one that fits for me.
Yeah, and Econ 102 would tell you that doesn't happen. Now, George is back because, of course, he didn't like my question, so he hung up on me.
No,
That's okay.
It scared me, so I didn't know what to do. So I just hung up. Like, I passed. The answer is that's an important one, Billy. But you know what? You and Jeff and I and the folks that listen to the show, we're all policy in the weeds people. I don't know how you turn that into an ad, but a conversation piece, absolutely. He went and brought two guys that not only have never been state prosecutors anywhere on the planet Earth, their prosecution experience was limited to white collar stuff decades before, and they weren't even licensed to practice in the state of Colorado. And they brought back bupkis. They brought back nothing. But his handling of those cases, it's going to help him with the Democrats because he gets to stand up and say, I fought to incarcerate a bunch of white first responders for the death of this innocent African-American young man. That's the narrative they want. Nobody cares that he spent jillions of dollars wasting it away. Nobody cares that he got experts who are completely controversial and unqualified. Nobody cares that the jury largely rejected every single and every single argument that he brought. That's what they're going to cling to. But for us, policy-wise, oh yeah. And the other thing people should look at, but they won't care about at the media level, is he has blown up the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office by personnel and dollar has never grown more quickly than it has under Phil Weiser. This dude is a kingdom builder. And so if you're at all concerned about the size of government, taking him and putting him in charge of the state coffers, dang, man. I mean, this guy must hate Tabor. He ain't going to defend it. One other thing that he's done, too, is there are things called custodial funds. When he sues in our name and gets a settlement, that money doesn't go back to the state treasury. He carves off a huge chunk to be run through his office for things that he creates administration for. So he goes around the state and says, I'm going to create an opioid addiction clinic right here in Alamosa, and I'm going to do it with these funds, not funds that the legislature has appropriated, funds that he claimed for himself in our name and then spends on behalf of himself and the office. Tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent like that. Nobody's going to care about that, but you guys should know this dude is the only elected official who has the ability to generate funds that are unchecked, unmanageable, and unaudited by the state legislature.
Talking with George Brauchler, district attorney from Judicial District 23. George, he is touting his number one success is blocking the merger of two grocery store companies. I just don't know how the Colorado people are going with all the crime, with all the challenges I'm facing. Blocking the merger of grocery stores is all of a sudden your greatest success? It just seems to fall flat, at least from my perspective. What about yours?
Well, I also think, Jeff, that part of the problem here is, and people may not relate these two things together in his benefit, but the cost of groceries isn't going down. Right. So what they're going to see is Phil blocked the merger, two giant supermarkets, and the cost of groceries has never been higher. I mean, that's the sense that people have, yes. Whether statistics say, otherwise on that. That doesn't feel like something you brag about. Like you brag about, I blew up a merger and prices plummeted. That's not what's happening. That's not what's going to happen because of our egg thing and a bunch of other, avian bird flu, whatever it is. I think that's a tough sell for him. I don't know how many people in Pueblo are going to be like, let's hug it out, buddy. You broke up the merger between Albertsons and Kroger. You just saved my life. You know what I mean? Like you've made things so much better. Hey, everybody, kids, pile into the car. We're going to an evening show in Denver now because they blocked the merger of two supermarkets. Don't forget to step over the addicts. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. George Brauchler, District Attorney, Judicial District 23. You're kicking it off real briefly. How are things going in your office?
Oh, fantastically, man. I am so ready to set sail. I'm ready to bash that champagne bottle on the front of this thing, the USS 23rd. But I can't until the 14th. So I'm still the DA transition liaison, whatever the hell that is, in the office, trying to get people in the right places and get the right policies in place. But
I want to be a liaison.
The enthusiasm is huge.
I want to be a liaison.
It has more eyes in it in that word than I thought.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of neat. And it seems like a job without a lot of responsibility, but a whole lot of authority. I like liaison. That's good. I like that.
I really don't have authority. So we're making decisions about things like, should we move this person? So I meet with people and I tell them, I have no authority to say what I'm about to say, but I think it's going to happen. Congratulations, you're promoted, or I'm moving you to this part of it. But
that's great.
It's weird. It's weird.
You're sort of like Donald Trump in the sense that you're affecting change. You're not even in office, and the guys that are in office aren't seeming to do anything. So in that case, well done, George Brauchler. Well, George, thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to you kicking off that office on January 14th.
Oh, yeah.
But thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show and give us some insights on Phil Weiser.
Yep, and Happy New Year.
Anytime. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Right. Coming up, we've got some cowboy poetry that we're going to saunter off on a Friday morning with. Jeff Hildebrandt joins us. He's got some poetry regarding Jimmy Carter, as well as what happened in New Orleans. So you're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The man who police say drove his truck through a crowd of people in New Orleans, Shamsuddin.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The man who police say drove his truck through a crowd of people in New Orleans, Shamsuddin Jabbar, planned to kill his family, but was worried that media attention wouldn't be focused on the war between believers and disbelievers, according to officials. They've also found bomb-making materials at a New Orleans Airbnb and are looking for a possible connection. The FBI says Jabbar posted 5 videos on his Facebook account proclaiming his support for ISIS. They say he joined the terror group before the summer and left behind a will and testimony. Jabbar served in the Army for 10 years and was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. And after first saying Jabbar was working with multiple other people, authorities are now saying that he acted alone. In a fiery social media post, President Donald Trump took aim at the country's, quote, weak leadership for failing to protect Americans just hours after authorities revealed they were investigating the attack in New Orleans and Las Vegas as terror-related. Trump saying our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world. The DOJ, FBI, and the Democrat state and local prosecutors have not done their job. Officials are acknowledging that there are, quote, very strange similarities between the 2 terror suspects who carried out attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Ohio, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I know it's been a demanding week on everybody. Probably lots of family activities and trying to get back into work, and school's coming next week for the kids. And so a whole lot going on. We like to just kind of ease in to the weekend like you ease into the saddle on a horse. And the best to do that is Jeff Hildebrandt, 710 KNUS Cowboy Poet Laureate. Jeff, thanks so much for joining the program.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Watch out for the horn when you get on the saddle.
That's exactly
honk.
Right.
Okay.
So we did a.
I want to make an observation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your George Brauchler interview. He said something that I think was really important for people to listen to. He brought in football to this whole conversation.
Yes.
He was talking about how Weiser had this committee and he brought back Bupkis. Remember that?
Dick Bupkis.
Dick Bupkis was the reference.
Yes.
There are a lot of people miss that.
Yeah, great Bears tight end.
Yes.
That's great. Now, you've been working on some poetry in light of, it almost feels like it was another time ago, but Jimmy Carter just died. Was it earlier this week?
Earlier this week. That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jimmy Carter passed away. And while the nation mourns, we should take time to think about the fact he's been reborn. Before he put on politics, Jimmy found the dedication to help those who needed it and inspired a generation to get out of their comfort zones and volunteer their skills to benefit humanity and not burden them with bills. His habitat work so pleased the Lord that he's finally been brought on board to join the Christ construction crew. They build the heavenly homes for you who have the faith to follow through on all that Jesus asks of you. So thank you, Jimmy Carter, for making it so clear that loving one another is why God has put us here.
Jeez.
I love that Christ construction crew.
That was cool too. I like that too. That was one that stood out for me. I'm like, that's a neat analogy. It's a neat way to think of it. That's really cool. That is because, and it's weird, Jeff Hildebrandt and Jeff Hunt, that Jimmy's reputation grew post White House, and you don't see that a lot. You don't see a lot of people grow their reputation after they leave the office versus where he was. There was a time in which people were like, "Hey, Tricky Dick is rested and ready. He's coming back." But his persona, his value wasn't increased necessarily afterwards. You didn't have these things. Nobody's out there, pining for Barack Obama as much. He's
that's actually, Billy, a really good lesson because your work is what God calls you to do, regardless of what office or job or position that you have. You do that mission work. And I've known a number of politicians who, once they leave office, they almost kind of like wander aimlessly. They don't necessarily have that direction. I appreciated being referred to as congressman, and it made them feel good and a sense of purpose. But it's got to be a lot bigger than just the office you're serving.
Oh yeah, you see the pro athletes too. A lot of times searching afterwards as far as who they are, because they've been defined by this for so long. So then who is that? If I'm no longer this professional athlete, who am I? Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Jeff Hildebrandt is with us, 710 Cowboy Poet Laureate. Jeff, you've got another one on New Orleans, huh?
I do. The Terror in Big Easy is another big event that serves as a reminder to confess and then repent. Admit to God that you've fallen short of all that he expected, then put your faith in Jesus Christ so your path is redirected. We don't know what could happen in a crowd or all alone. And common sense says, be prepared, because history has shown, expect the unexpected, because it will slap you in the face. And the only sure survival plan is to have faith in holy grace.
Oh,
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
These were kids. I was reading some of the victims in New Orleans were college, high school, just out revelers having a good time. And
there was a beloved employee at the Superdome that lost their life too. And then someone that just, it was awful. But it's nice too, the idea that this is transitory. This is temporary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think
tough.
it's important that those who believe explain what they believe and why they believe it, and not wait around, because the person that you really want to talk to may not be around to hear it. So,
Amen.
here I
Jeff,
am.
That's right. That's right.
Here I am.
That's-
Pay attention.
That's what we do. That's
You
what
know?
we do. You know, people they chastise evangelicals or Christians that want to share their faith regularly, because it's like, why you guys always got to talk about it? And in many ways, it's like you found this great prize, this joy that not only provides eternal salvation, but life to the fullest right now. And you just do it out of an abundance of love. You just want to share with people. I have actually met Christ, and my whole life has changed, and I'm filled with joy, and I just want you to experience it as well.
Well, we have to remember that our story is our story, and it's not going to be their story.
Yep.
This is what happened to me. You see the difference that accepting Christ made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I see it. Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you, I'm not going to hit the gory details, but let me tell you what happened to me, what I did before, and then how my life changed after, when I found out what the truth really was about life.
Well, let's do another one here, and then we'll get to the break. New Year's resolutions.
New Year's
You got any
resolutions.
resolutions for us?
We haven't gone too far from the fact that people are still talking about their New Year's resolutions. But I do not make resolutions. There really is no need. I tried to keep them in the past and never did succeed, except the year that I resolved to be a better me. That one, of course, succeeded. I'm sure you'll all agree. But I didn't do it DIY. I had to pay a price. I had to give away myself to make room for Jesus Christ. We can only be successful with the changes we've resolved if the first thing we remember is to get the Lord involved. And the only resolution we should strive hard to fulfill requires the Holy Spirit. That's resolved to do God's will.
Ooh, that's a
Doing
nice
that
reminder
work
about
alongside God.
Yeah, about the idea of where the resolutions and where our focus really should be, because so often we're internally focused, and many of our resolutions are going to be incredibly selfish about betterment of you so that you feel better, and we're not focusing on making sure those people struggling in our community are feeling better, and making sure the people you run into that may not have that smile on their face today, they're not feeling better. The people in your neighborhood that are struggling, they're not feeling better. But as long as you're feeling better about yourself, yeah, you're fine. It's a good message that maybe our resolutions should be more outward focused at times.
Well, I think you're right, and I appreciate you bringing the angling aspect into it when you said that we're all making shellfish resolutions.
Yes, but you can't leave that out in the sun too long, because then it goes bad on you.
We've got more ahead. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to finish this show with a cowboy poetry from Jeff Hildebrandt. Jeff, you got one on geezers, huh?
Geezers, right. Thank God for geezers. Thank God for old timers who still respect the cause that brought an end to tyranny and helped us set up the laws to benefit all people, not just a chosen few. Thank God for the ones who fought protecting me and you. Thank God for the geezers reminding us what's right, reminding us of past mistakes, and turning on the light of freedom that shines bright enough to keep us on our way toward a better future with help from yesterday. They stand for the national anthem. They proudly sing along. They show respect for others and fix things that are wrong. You can hear them say they're sorry if they bump you on the street, and they'll extend a greeting hand every time you meet. They have courage and integrity and wisdom they can share. If we take time to let them, they will show us how much they care. So thank God for old fogies who tell it like it was, but spare the gory details. They only share because they know that it will help us all to learn from their mistakes and find ways to improve our world for everybody's sakes.
Oh, that's nice.
I love that.
Yeah, that
is great.
It reminds me of, I don't remember who the author is that talks about the idea that, when they were 13, 14, 15, 16, their father was an idiot. And they were so surprised by the time they got to 22, how much dad had learned. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I know a 14-year-old who thinks his grandfather's an idiot.
Well, if you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com. Thank you to Jeff Hildebrandt. Thank you to all of our guests. You're listening to Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, give me a second just to write it.